Hello everyone, welcome back. So, how's it been? I feel like I say that every time. Uh, it's been a few days, I think, and there's been quite a few things happened. A lot of memes too. Hello, Somnovox. I see that Chase is still down there with his somewhat reduced audience after I pulled you all away. I wonder. I called my stream on my secondary. Now I suppose, well, just my streaming channel on YouTube. I called it CrackerGate with some other words in there. What did I call it exactly? CrackerGate and Bath, and then UK situation gets worse. So I wonder if CrackerGate's going to get me banned. So apparently it got some people on Twitch banned, although they are different platforms. I wonder how similar the policies are. Yes, Christmas Doug. Well, I suppose I am of the class cracker. Now, we will talk about that more, and I have some thoughts on that I haven't heard anyone else saying. Although probably I'm not the first to think it. We'll get to that soon. But first, we have a lot of memes. Let me think if there's anything that needs to be covered before that. I don't think so. I will do community stuff, news, maybe some tech if there is any later. I will say that I got a nice this, which means that instead of now having to push the mic to the side, I can just twist it and then it unlocks and then push it backwards. It's like a telescopic thing. It's cool. Anyway, let's go on to the actual content, shall we? Memes. I have a few memes today. What was this? I know I haven't got it that big. Give me a second. Yeah. So this is one of those. It's not necessarily a meme. It's just a short story. They have part of this is part of my grand collection of things that I need to cover. Henry Cavill, who plays The Witcher and also played Superman and also played the main character in The Man from U.N.C.L.E., which is a great movie, by the way, which we watched in Cabal a while ago. Of course, we didn't watch it. That would be naughty. Henry Cavill says he prefers adaptations to be less changed from the source when speaking about his interest in a live-action Mass Effect TV series. So, a lot of things here that I wanted to talk about just from this title, and we can look into the detail more. But just from the title, one, Henry Cavill either is or is pretending to be or being pushed to pretend to be like a kind of bit of a Chad, bit of a based guy, bit of a down to earth individual rather than Hollywood norm. He claims to be a PC gamer. He claims to have played Witcher extensively before being in the show. Said this now, and there's other things he said. I've always got the impression that he is kind of based. Now, the coincidence of, oh, you played Witcher, did you? And now you're now you're Geralt. Oh, really? Okay, yeah, sure. You're PC gamer. You say you've got a nice gaming PC at home. Do you? The coincidence of that is not something that has escaped notice, but it might well be true. I didn't get the sense he was lying, but then he is an actor, and quite a good one. So it might not be true. But if it is not a lie, this could be an addition to that, because this would be a good opinion. If you're creating a movie, the only real adaptation that should be necessary is structuring the story to fit a movie rather than a game. The actual source material of the universe shouldn't change almost at all. And Mass Effect as a video game was pretty applicable to make into a movie anyway. It's pretty story focused. So Mass Effect would be a good example. And then the other thing to take from this is, okay, Mass Effect has a pretty good story, and Henry Cavill would make a pretty good Shepard. Any disagreements on that? Is Wes here? Looks like he isn't. But I'm sure Wes would have opinions on this too. Yeah, he seems to be driven. Almost missed an audition for a WoW raid. That's pretty fun, Megan. See, that's the kind of thing where, like, I've no reason to think he's lying, but it is rather convenient, almost as if he's been created for this audience, or he's been molded into that. Interesting. He's What is this? Is he? Yeah, he's painting. He's painting figures like Games Workshop Warhammer figures, according to the screenshot Dak has just posted. He says he's a pretty dedicated fraud if he spent last year's lockdown painting Warhammer minis. Yeah, he seems to be. Again, like, I didn't ever get the impression he was lying. It all seemed a little bit convenient, but that might just be because he is actually that way. Kind of like a nerd in the body of a Chad, but with a nice personality as well. I don't know. I don't see any reason to doubt it personally, other than that is somewhat convenient. Hello, Eb. Eb has named himself the punching bag of Cabal, so please, chat, do not disappoint. Punch him baggingly. Punch him viciously and without remorse. Have you all seen the hats meme? I will skip to it now. This is by Silent. So it starts here with this character. I can't remember who this is in Cabal on the left here, and then you've got I'm sure I do know, but I've forgotten briefly. As the Virgin, and then you've got as the Chad. You got, I think is that Lord Alexander, who's currently called Lord of Yule, with a bunch of hats, and then you've got Eb with lots more hats, and then you've got me as requested as the Gigathad with the wizard hat. It just keeps going. The ultimate in the expression of the hat. It is very me. And I do have the wizard hat. And maybe I should set something up again to allow people to tip in order to get me to wear it. Don't forget, it's the last part in culture. I did see something else in culture. What was it? I don't get it right. I don't get the reference because it's I haven't played Dark Souls. Played a bit of Dark Souls 3. I don't think that's from 3. I might be wrong though. All right. Next thing. Fact check, partly false. Altered image shows Jussie Smollett being abused by his friends. Although Smollett did pay his friends to fake a crime of humiliation, it did not take place in the bedroom. The original photo is of Hunter Biden humiliating a woman. It is unknown if he paid her. I don't really understand the angle of this meme. It just seems like just pure chaos, because this is clearly not something Facebook actually said. I don't know if anyone actually created that meme on the left organically, or if that was created for this meme. And obviously the image on the right is real. That part I don't doubt. It's hard to figure it out. It just seems like a celebration of the chaos of the times we live in. And I appreciate that. So, next thing. Yeah, so this is apparently, according to this Twitter user, the state of Germany. First official statement from Germany's new chancellor. Germany is a country of immigrants, citizenship after 5 years of residency, which means if you're illegal for 5 years, congratulations, you're now legal. Dual citizenship permitted, which means no commitment to being a citizen of Germany. Legalize illegal migrants, and migrant quotas for all administrative positions. Suddenly, Merkel not looking quite so bad, despite how fucking awful Merkel is. Because this stuff is all, well, I don't know if it's actually worse than she would have done, but it is, at the very least, a continuation. So even when I see France having some sort of revolt, because obviously it's France, and I see the UK with Brexit, and some other good signs too, I look over at some other European countries, and even with France and the UK having some good signs, nothing major has changed positively yet. But I look over at other nations in Europe, and it's just so much worse, even than France and the UK, which are pretty bad. It's so much worse in other countries. I was talking to someone recently who was all very pro-orthodoxy on the medical institution, and I told her they've got concentration camps in Germany. I told her that they are proposed by Merkel. They're not actually instituted yet, but I think in Austria they are, and certainly in Australia they are, and have been for months. And she said good about the concentration camps, because she was so vitriolically opposed to the unvaccinated. And then she started, and I mentioned the Nazis because, Godwin, but it seems very fucking appropriate. And then she starts defending concentration camps in general. So, yeah, it's not looking good. It could get a lot worse as well. I think that she is probably quite a poor example of the kind of person that we're likely to need to deal with. But there will be people like that all over the place supporting the regime. And again, I say it again, people have often wondered how the situation in Germany was allowed to get to the point it did. Now we know. Well, we kind of already knew, but now we can see it because it's currently happening. Daka said, me at work yesterday, your face covered because the company says you have to. My face is covered because it's 20 fucking degrees outside. We are not the same. I do like the we are not the same meme. Covered because it's 20 degrees outside. 20 wouldn't be Fahrenheit, surely. It's 20 Fahrenheit, wouldn't that be? I don't know, actually. But if it's 20 Fahrenheit, then yes, it would be so cold that it would make sense to cover your face. Okay, understood, some of the box. 20 Celsius would be just sort of a little bit cold. But yeah, it makes sense if it's Fahrenheit. That makes sense. Thank you for the contribution, Daka. Tristan Stuck says 20F is below freezing. So calling it chilly is a little off, but if it's below freezing, I suppose maybe Somnavox is Canadian. I'm not sure. I don't mean to misjudge you, Somnavox. My fantasy is just a little cold. Yeah, exactly, Arbla. I think minus 20C is a little more than just a little cold. Okay. You mean 10C below freezing, Phil, I assume. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. So 20F, yeah, that's pretty cold. That's pretty cold. All right, understood. Thank you for the clarification, folks. I think that there's some sort of guide on that, which is something like divided by 3 minus 10, roughly, which is like a decent approximation from Fahrenheit to Celsius, which in this case would be fairly close, actually. If it is divided by 3 minus 10, I don't remember if that's what it is. Mage, what the fuck is wrong with you, man? You just can't help yourself. Every time you come here, it's just Fed post after Fed post. Look, I understand that your handler told you that this is a Nazi server, but it's not true. Very few people here actually do want a white ethnostate. We are meritocrats. We care about things that work. And both short-term and long-term. Principles like free expression are something that works long-term, which is why we have to maintain it, short-term and long-term. Right. Let's see what else we've got. This is so fucking ridiculous. I wonder, hold on a second. Don't read this yet, chat. We'll see if we can make this fun. Right, okay. Zane, ping me in live chat. I'm going to fucking make this tiny so I don't ruin it. Zane, ping me in live chat if you're willing to come on for a bit and and do something for me. It's perfect. He's pinged me. It's happening. Zane, my friend.
Uh-oh.
Yes, uh-oh is correct. Now, I'm going to do the screen share and my Discord sometimes crashes when I do this, but if it does, it should be the last time it does it. It usually happens once, and then we'll be going again. So I'm going to do the screen share. Apologies if it crashes. But if it does, the stream won't be interrupted. I'll just have to start Discord again. Would you mind reading this? And I will, if you like, put a pitch shift on.
Oh no. Reddit doesn't know what English is, does it?
It's fucking
There's
Reddit.
There's like one word on it I'm gonna have an issue with, but everything else I'm good. The hell is imbi?
Good fucking question.
All right,
I think
right,
NB means non-binary, maybe?
NB, okay. Hi there, I'm a queer poly NB little. I'm guessing they mean they're a sub. I got into kinks as a way to explore my fantasies of being someone's little girl, but I haven't felt very welcome in any of the mainstream BDSM subreddits because there's too many Max and Juice.
Even the dregs
please tell
of
me
the...
this is fake.
I hope so. Even the dregs of the right wing end up on Reddit. Mega says little is worse than sub. Yes, I expect it's sub and age play. I suspect. I don't know that.
That's worse.
Yeah, that is worse. Definitely. 1 second, chat. Oh, interesting. 1 second, sorry. All right, there we go. Sorry about that, chat. Shadow Ryu, why have you cursed this place with that image? Cease. He has posted Steph on knee. I believe was her name. Or his, I shouldn't say her name. This is Zero Pass. It's his name. Shadow, sorry to be awkward, but if you post that image again, this is not a threat. If you post that image again, it will appear on the stream overlay. So if you like, post it again and then delete the original. If you like, it should appear on the stream overlay to give people an idea of what we're talking about. All right. Next thing. Yeah, it did appear, but it's small. So, speaking of which, actually, is facial recognition software transphobic? Controversial tech has a gender problem. And here is an example of, well, is it a woman? Why is it not zooming in properly? Is it a woman? It doesn't appear to be. And the AI doesn't think so either.
It looks like a very young Jeffrey Epstein being photoshopped onto a woman's face.
I guess so, yeah. The NPC cuck. Well, actually, it's the other way around. Anyway, the person that doesn't like this says, no, you can't just misgender people. Meanwhile, the bot just spits out binary. I don't know if that binary means anything. Actually, given the pattern of the letters, that probably is Unicode or something. Given the 0 1s at the beginning. Someone could put that into a converter, find out what that is. Next thing. Yes, AI is based. And, like, again, it's pretty obvious to say, but the problem is not that the AI is transphobic. The problem is that reality is transphobic by the definition that they have given. If an AI is going to do this, unless it's been programmed in a biased way, which is unlikely, this kind of defeat the point if it was. If the AI is going to do this, then this is someone without bias telling you that there is a problem. Someone giving you a direct line to reality. And reality on the phone saying, yo, there's a problem here.
Yes, it's the computer telling you you're not trying hard enough. Try harder.
Yeah. If you want to be persuasive as a transgender, you are going to have to pass. And if an AI can tell that you don't, then probably people can too. Someone tried with Blair White. Blair White's not bad, like, she, in terms of passing. She does fairly well. I can't say the same for this individual here. It's not a million miles away, but the eyebrows, dude, are enormous. Why? Women don't tend to have enormous eyebrows. God damn. G7, that's pretty high quality. Yes, don't forget what they took from us. A Cortana that was actually looked like a real person, or looked like it wasn't designed by someone with like massive brain damage. Wes has been playing the new Halo recently, and he streamed some of it. And the new Cortana, who, for the purposes of the story, it's not technically Cortana, but it is basically Cortana. She's fucking awful. Not just in terms of personality, they basically reverted her to a child, but she's got that teeth issue that a lot of media, frankly, from the left or from just low quality in general, seems to have these days. And I'm pretty sure it's the same problem that Mass Effect Andromeda had to a certain extent. The facial animation is just garbage. It just looks like a fucking demon in human skin. Have you
So what you're
seen
saying,
it?
the only thing they got right here was having her have the mentality of a child?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, apparently, this is spoilers. Apparently, Cortana went evil in 5, I think. And so this new one technically isn't Cortana. Which is like, why? Cortana and Chief, legendary pair. Why make Cortana evil? It just seems like the postmodernist theme or trope, that's the word I'm looking for, of defying expectations by doing something unusual. But the thing is that doing that, I don't have any problem with people doing that. Like most things in postmodernism, they're not inherently wrong. It's the things that people tend to do with them are some of the most wrong things that you could possibly do. It's not inherently wrong to defy expectations, but that can't stand in for quality. And with most postmodernist media these days, it does. It just attempts to stand in for quality. It's just, we're going to defy expectations instead of writing a good story. We can just do that. We can just defy expectations. It's fine. Of course, they're not actually saying that. I tell you what, though, the voice acting is pretty fantastic in that game. The graphics are pretty good. So it's not like everyone involved is a retard. Just the people that wrote the story, the people that did the animations, the people that designed the characters, essentially the things that you would expect the modern left to get wrong. I don't know how leftist the people that made it were, but I can fucking tell that there are some of the same problems I see all over the place in games and media that appear to have a propagandistic edge. But yeah, according to Wes, who is a big Halo fan, he might not even finish Halo Infinite. It's that unbearable, which is kind of sad. But it is a good excuse for us to go play some of the original Halos again. Right, let's continue. Steve Inman on Twitter says, Vax cards to enter stores, just go in there and steal stuff instead. This way you don't get arrested thanks to liberal policies. Now, Zane, you live in Florida, so I don't imagine that you have this issue in your state. But is anyone
no, not really.
Is anyone in chat acquainted with is anyone in chat perhaps live in a Democrat city who is acquainted with this issue? Because I have heard a great many stories about leniencies being given to criminals. Meanwhile, whole new things that are actually innocuous being criminalized and actually enforced. Which is an indication that the resources to enforce these things, whatever the issue, it is, as usual, the will. As I've said before, most of the problem, if not almost all of it, is not that we don't have the right policies or the right principles or anything like that. It's that they are not being enforced properly. If they are being enforced, they are being enforced with bad faith. And often they're not. The policies that we already had before all this shit begun were enough to prevent almost all of it from happening, if they were actually applied as written. Now, I'm not saying that that means that there was no problem before. Obviously, if the system can fail to that extent, then there was a problem, and we are figuring those problems out and looking to solving them. But still, reactions which go along the lines of give authorities more power to deal with this kind of situation are, one, probably the point of creating that chaos in the first place, maybe at least, and two, unlikely to help, even if they were implemented exactly as you want, because they wouldn't be enforced with good faith. We don't need harsher policies right now. In some places we probably do, but that's not the main thing we need. The main thing we need is goodwill, is people who are actually worthwhile getting into positions of power.
If anything, just remove a few policies, like the policy stating that you can steal as long as it's under $950.
There's that one. I did hear about that. And the guy that made everything in his shop, $951. And then I think did some sort of like discount at the till of $950 just as a technicality so that he could get them to actually do something about it. And I wonder if their policy on that would have been, we have to evaluate it. Either
Well,
way,
'cause I was thinking about that in a
unacceptable.
sense, because how can you have it to where if you go into court, they're gonna be like, well, is this really on sale? Or like, are you really selling this for this? So which I thought most stores have some sort of coupon or rewards card. And since it's a local shop, it's probably the locals just sign up for it as free rewards card for him. And then so that way the sales price actually is $951. And then part of their rewards for shopping there, it's normal price.
Yeah. Maybe that would work. Then, of course, it's going to be hard to get new business. Unless you just give everyone the reward card, everyone that comes through the door the rewards card.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Well, I mean, a small extra cost in printing up reward cards is probably going to help with the massive savings in things not getting stolen because there's no deterrence to the theft. So, there's that. Then, there is this. Yes, I haven't had any vaccine side effects. Which vaccine did you get? Which vaccine did you get? Yeah, I haven't had any vaccine side effects either. Anyone in chat also safe of vaccine side effects?
This actually reminds me, have you talked about how some of the totally illegal people crossing the border are being rejected for getting the jab? Since the companies are in fear that they might get sued.
Right. I don't know if I heard about that. Or I can't remember what you mean immediately. Yeah, more indie, there's far less side effects of natural immunity. And I'm not trying to claim it's just as effective for people that haven't had the virus already. But for people that have, there really is no reason to assume that natural immunity wouldn't be more effective than the vaccine. And it's very possible that by now, you might have had it with barely noticing it. Like for a while, about a month ago, I had, for about a month long as well, I had just a slight cough, which seems to have gone now. I have no idea if that was COVID. It probably wasn't. I mean, that's an extremely mild symptom for it to be COVID. It probably wasn't. But the chance is greater than zero that it was just the extremely mild form that happened to manifest in me. I also had an illness in late 2019, and I don't remember the symptoms, sadly, but that also possibly could have been COVID very early on. I didn't think about it back then, but it might have been. Or I might not have had it at all. Either way, if I get it, I have a very good chance of surviving it. And if I then survive it, then I will have a better immunity than if I got the vaccine anyway, which I may already have. Okay, thank you, Zane. I tell you what, I'll open that and we'll get to it when we do the news later, if we have space in the show. Right, so next thing. So from Twitter. So I haven't listened to this yet. We're going to find out if this is what it seems like. Let me know if you can't hear this, guys. It's only a short clip.
But all kidding aside, of course, President Harris is a proud Howard alum. She might have something to say about Delaware State.
Let's hear that just one more time.
But all kidding aside, of course, President Harris is a proud Howard alum. She might have something to say about Delaware State.
So yeah, he said, I believe, President Harris is a Howard alum, which I think alumni, so university thing. Yeah, it was a bit slurred, Daddy Bill, but I think that's what he said. But the important point, naturally, is President Harris. Now, let's listen to that one more time. See if there was maybe a minor grunt under his breath, which could have been Vice. So that whether the problem was his enunciation or the problem was his cognition. Let's find out.
But all kidding aside, of course, President Harris.
Nah, there wasn't. There's nothing. What do you think, Zane?
Yeah, no, at this point, it is getting close to that 2-year mark, so I think no.
Getting close to the what, sorry?
Well, if they can have him last for at least 2 years within his 4-year term, then that way Harris can be president for like 10 years.
That's true. They might want to do that. Although I'm not sure. I guess the question I was going to ask is, the question that makes sense now is, who would be less popular, Biden or Harris? And that's a fucking tough one, honestly, because they're both utterly unlikable. And at this point, like I'm talking about for the midterms, at this point, because the midterms aren't about the president, but they are also about the president somewhat. They would want to put their best foot forward, surely, for the midterms. Which one is their best foot? The real question is, which one's their worst foot? I'm not sure. Maybe it would be better to simply have someone different than this. Maybe they'll do bait and switch right before the midterms or something. But then, of course, Harris has to build up. Then again, I suppose the idea of she has to build up more rapport with the audience. Why? If anyone sees her, the Democrat Party will be hurt by that. So no, they'd have every motive to just get rid of Biden just before the midterms. And then, but of course, they will be relying on rigging the elections, midterms included. So actually do go and vote, regardless how much rigging they do, because every vote you send in makes it harder for some cunt to rig the election. You're actually making the jobs of the cheaters harder by walking to a place and doing your civic duty. That's a good deal, frankly. And that's even assuming that it's rigged where you are. It might not be, but doubly important if it is. So do make sure that you do that, everyone. And more so, if you can, within the bounds of just law, attempt to enforce the correct procedures of the election. Obviously, without bias. Because we're not the ones with the bias problem on this side of the culture war. But of course, be careful, because you may be putting yourself at risk by trying to do the right thing. You have to be smart about it. Duck says, rumors are that Harris is feuding with Biden and his handlers. They're probably trying to figure out how to get rid of her. Yes, I had heard that. There was also similar reports that Hillary and Obama, I think it was, were not on good terms as well. So that might be normal, or it might just be something that they tell everyone for some tactical reason, some psychological reason, get their energy off balance for some reason, for example. But yeah, it's very possible it's true. And I wouldn't be surprised if it was even worse with this administration, because they probably both know they didn't win legitimately. And that, I suppose, I have no doubt they're both psychopaths, but I suppose that would weigh on their conscience somewhat. Knowing not necessarily that they did something wrong, but that they weren't good enough, and that everyone fucking hates them. Yes, that's a good point, Duck. Duck says, local elections are important too, and they're too small for the riggers to waste time on, especially school board elections. Now, you say that, if they use Dominion voting machines, then no, the riggers will spend time on them as well. They will. But that doesn't mean you put less effort in. It means you put more effort in. You go to the vote, you vote as they intend, you vote properly, and then you actually do the work to make sure that the entire election is held according to the correct procedures. Which is not always going to be possible, especially if it's using voting machines. You can essentially call them rigging machines. If they want to rig with those machines, there's no way to stop them. Now, some places have two forms of voting. So you vote with the machine, and then there's also a second one that just to make sure the numbers are the same for checking with voting. We heard about plenty of ways they got around that during the 2020 election, inventing the paper ballots, shredding the data before it was able to be checked, etc. But still, the fact that is there makes it harder for them. You are making the job of riggers harder if you actually vote. And to whatever extent, try to make sure that your vote is accountable and has the effect that it is supposed to. Right, says, if everyone hating them was enough, the Democrats would have given up 8 years ago. Indeed, but how much hate can they bear? Hillary lost to Trump because, I would say, largely because Hillary is so unlikable. Obama was a likable person, at least from a politician perspective. And yes, he did win. if that's what it took to have a very charismatic person like that back then, and it's so much more tense now, and Harris is probably much less popular than Hillary is, then you're right that the direction itself, the direction of them being hated, isn't a problem, but how much of it can they bear? I think the answer is we're already past the point they can legitimately bear, because they had to rig the last election. We are past that point. It's going to be harder and harder for them every time. So don't let up. That now is the time to keep pushing. People of the US. Next thing. Yes. So, cashing in on COVID, pandemic turns 50 doctors and scientists into billionaires, with more than half hailing from China, Forbes reveals. So essentially, a large amount of money has been extracted from the Western world into China, probably net, that is the direction, just like almost everything else, by a plague that China revealed, and under policies which are very similar to the way China operates. So I'm sure that's just a coincidence. Then it says workers around the world lost $3.7 trillion in the pandemic. Billionaires around the world gained $3.9 trillion in the pandemic. Which again makes you think, makes you want to root it back to, maybe this was the intended outcome all along. The virus being released may have been intentional, may not have been. The virus being real and an actual threat probably what, obviously the virus is real, but how much of a threat it is, probably enough to justify some sort of action, maybe not mandatory or collective, but some sort of action from individuals at least. But we're well past that point now, and China's cover-up, as well as the policies and the furor and the fear around it, were almost all engineered. As well as, of course, the Democrats early on downplaying the virus and doing exactly what you would do if you wanted the virus to spread. So almost every stage of it had some tinge of grift. Now, not all of it. I believe that near the beginning of this, Corinne was saying it's all a scam, or words to that effect. And I don't think I ever disagreed that there are elements of that to it. But I interpreted what she said as that the virus itself is also. And that no collective action or maybe no individual action is necessary or justified. I only disagreed partly with that, but yes, it appears that she is correct, or was correct, that large parts of it are a grift, as I've been saying for a while. So it seems that way. And you've got a picture here of police from, I don't know where, but I would guess from Australia, because I know this was happening there, forcing a mask onto someone. I mean, the whole mask thing is very religious anyway. Like, the mask, it's not a golden bullet, it's not a silver bullet. It helps a bit. In most cases, if you use proper technique. Forcing them to put a mask on is much more a matter of compliance than it is a matter of safety, which, of course, is getting more and more common these days. Let's see what the next thing is. So, speaking of Cabal, when you accept a contract, but the monster you were supposed to kill turns out to be a cool dude, is Henry Cabal and Shrek in the mud bath together. And I think this is very based. I only opened this because I think it's nice. A nice little confluence of characters here. And then Fiona, ogre Fiona in the background, looking out at the boys. I suppose this would be a good, like, this is what the left took from you. With, like, the 50s barbecue with the picket fence and the idealistic family. Which, to some extent, yes, has been taken. It's not just an ideal, that thing, but it is also somewhat idealistic. But with these as the characters. I suppose so, Mage. Mage has posted an image saying that mandatory, required, ordered, requested, ordinance, decree, recommended, and compulsory actually don't refer to things being laws. I think sometimes they do. So depending on, you could say it's a law, therefore it's mandatory or something like that. But they might not use that language, or they might be official restrictions on whether they can use that language to describe things that aren't laws. Or perhaps the meme itself is trying to deceive people into disobeying things that are laws and things that are just recommendations.
It's probably a mixture of both, because I know there are some things that are considered command language in law, which I believe some of these are. But at the same time, politicians might be using these to confuse some people into thinking something is law when it isn't.
I don't doubt it. Yeah, if Geralt was sent to... sorry, back from real politics to this, because this is much more fun. If Geralt was sent to kill Shrek, what do you guys think would happen? Do you guys reckon it would end up this way? I mean, in The Witcher, most of the monsters he's sent to kill end up being bastards. But I don't think all of them are, and I can't remember any example. I think quite often he has to just solve a problem to make the monster less of a hazard, rather than kill the monster. It's not often that it's that simple. I happen to think he probably would end up befriending Shrek, and if he was sent there to deal with Shrek, like abducting things for the locals, which he doesn't do in the story, but then they would have to solve that problem a different way. Any crimes or anything that Shrek had actually done wrong, the Witcher would try to find a different way. And if there was no other way, or if the ogre refused to cooperate, it would come to a battle. I suppose the problem would be the first encounter between them, when they don't know each other, and the Witcher just appears with this fucking swords, may be drawn already, and the ogre is just upset that someone's in his swamp. I suppose that would be the flashpoint. That would be the real danger moment. If anything was going to go wrong, it would be there. It would depend how The Witcher approached it. The fact that if Shrek spoke something intelligible before any sort of battle had begun, that probably would change the approach. The Witcher would probably at that point switch to more of a diplomatic stance in that, and trying to smooth over the issue socially rather than with combat. But I think if it got beyond that point, then yes, it would get to Brozone. And given in the story, Shrek, I don't think he's actually terrorizing local villages. They probably would just hire the Witcher to get rid of him because they don't like him being there. The Witcher probably would just reject the contract in the end. Big tag team Fiona. Somnavox, are you okay over there? Why does everything have to be sexual? This is that meme of people being touch-starved and thinking that all like healthy, non-sexual relationships have to be sexual. I'm not saying that's you. I know it was just a joke, and that's fine. But it did make me think of that. Yeah, someone bonk Somnavox for me. Let's see some opinions on this, because this is obviously the most important story of the show. Let's see some opinions on what people think would happen. G7 says, I think Henry Cavill will move in with Shrek because Netflix is replacing him for season 3. Unacceptable. If Cavill is being kicked off of Witcher, I might just fucking boycott it. Daka says, if a monster isn't an actual threat, Geralt will often leave them be. Indeed. Bright said, it would definitely end up this way because the story doesn't miss a beat when it comes to making Geralt naked. That's true. Horace says one of his best friends is a vampire. Who is that? Zane, do you know the Witcher lore?
No.
I've watched most of some playthroughs of Witcher 2 and 3, the games, and I've watched the entire Witcher Netflix series. That's my knowledge of the lore. It's not particularly deep, but it's probably deeper than the average person that hasn't played them. Datibald says, my money is on Geralt helps Shrek build a border wall around his swamp. That could work. Vil says they're replacing him with Mikkelsen. Now that's interesting. Mikkelsen actually, I think he was being proposed by fans before the show was announced. I may be wrong on that. Mikkelsen actually wouldn't be too bad as a Witcher. I still think Cavill's much better. But Mikkelsen might not be too bad. Warmaster says he's in the Witcher 3 DLC. Ah, is that Blood and Wine? I haven't seen that one. Geralt and Shrek end up playing some Gwent after the mud bath. Yes, and Shrek ends up being surprisingly good at it, despite the fact that he's an ogre. Although the main problem is he finds the cards a bit too small to maneuver around. Ah. Okay, G7 has just linked something about who they are using instead. Henry Cavill replaced by Matt Bomer for The Witcher Season 3. Never heard of him. I may be willing to give him a chance and see if he's... But if he's not up to the standard of Cavill, then I probably won't watch it. Henry Cavill is the new target of Variety magazine that is notorious for providing some shocking stories from Hollywood. It has been written that Witcher Season 2 has been a ridiculously dragged affair, and the makers have now made their mind to replace the lead star Henry Cavill. They actually have found another hot replacement for the Superman. I don't know why they say hot. I guess this is Women magazine. This is from DKO-Ding.in. So it's an Indian publication, and it's written by someone called Jyotsana Rai, which sort of sounds like a female name. Let's have a look, shall we? Yep. So this is an Indian woman for an Indian publication writing about the hot Netflix stars. So this is the kind of quality that we can expect from this publication. That's fantastic. And they found a new Witcher for Season 3. So, okay, so Season 2, apparently, will have Cavill, is what I'm interpreting here, but Season 3 will not. Which sucks.
And in the film as well, Nola goes around a lot incognito in disguises, so she's not found out. Have you ever been recognised and mistaken to be someone else?
Sometimes. Actually, it hasn't really happened in a while, but a lot of people hand me this. There's one particular photo of Matt Bomer, which people want me to keep on signing, and I think it's him lying in the water, and he's half submerged, he's lying on his side, and people keep on handing that to me. I'm like, I would love to sign this for you, but
cringe. But yeah, so that's bad news. Now, this is not politics, although it may intersect with it. But I did enjoy this show, so that's kind of a shame. It sounds, from the way that this is written, actually in the first paragraph, it sounds like they actually had issues with Cavill. Maybe he was being too based for their liking. Maybe he was actually standing in the way of a lot of changes they were trying to make. Probably bad changes. I wonder. I mean, that's kind of an optimistic outlook, but if Cavill is the hero he sometimes appears to be, then maybe that is true. That's pretty good, Daka. All right. Let's move on, shall we? What is next? Yeah, this is pretty wholesome. So here's the legendary tweet that says, "Guys literally only want one thing and it's fucking disgusting." And under that, a Reddit post entitled, "My girlfriend just said my name while sleeping and smiled after." Yes, you will find, this is probably not an original thought, but Ash here, I expect, has been pursuing deliberately, without necessarily realizing it, but still pursuing the kind of men that do just want sex. Whereas there is a large number of people, possibly larger than in previous ages, though I don't have data on that, who really just want the wholesome experience with a reasonable person. I'm talking about men seeking women here, but obviously there's going to be some of the other and also the others, the other pairings as well. But specifically men seeking women here.
Yes, but that's very boring to several women. They want the adventurous type, which is the type that essentially just wants nothing but sex from them.
Maybe. I think if you shift the orthodoxy to a point of insanity, then sane men are going to have a much more difficult time finding sane women. Unfortunately, that has been my experience of late. Earlier, I mentioned someone I was talking to recently who said concentration camps in Germany for the unvaccinated? Good. Yes, that was a woman in the area. She had nice breasts, and maybe were at a different time, she would be less totally insane. But perhaps it is a blessing in disguise that she revealed herself to be insane by the colors of the times, rather than later revealing herself to be insane after I had become more acquainted with her. G7 says, Netflix stated that the delay in the series, which was brought by the COVID lockdown, was brought in due to Cavill, claiming his presence added bad luck in the series. He was advocating the series followed the books more rather than Netflix making shit up. G7, I have recently resolved to be careful in just believing what people tell me. But honestly, because especially things that sound good, because that sounds like exactly what I would want to hear. I tell you what, since you've mentioned that, let's go back and read that article and see if we can find anything else. Nothing about bad luck charm. Thank you, Clever Duck. I'll read that in just a moment. Let's see if there is anything else. G7, if you have a link, that would be fantastic. Clever Duck says, Merry Christmas. Thank you, Clever Duck, and Merry Christmas to you as well, and to everyone in Cabal. And you too, Zane. Is there anyone in the live channel who is not wearing a Santa hat? I would like everyone to perform a bottom-up inquisition. Go through everyone in the live channel and ping them with the cheer is mandatory or wear the hat meme. Thanks to Zane's bot. If they are not wearing one, I notice the_u is not wearing one. Let's see who else there is. Mr. Paul is not wearing one. Mage F35A is not wearing one, etc. Please continue without me, chat. Everyone felt that Lady Luck has left it. The shoot of The Witcher 2, The Witcher Season 2 remained in the news for all the wrong reasons. Everyone felt that Lady Luck had hit Netflix series forever. According to the reports published in the Variety magazine, Matt Bomer is seriously being considered to play Geralt of Rivia in The Witcher. The actor is hugely popular, etc., etc. Never heard of him. I may have heard of him, actually. Fans of Henry Cavill feel betrayed by the clandestine plans of the makers. Yeah, it doesn't sound good. It's a real shame because there was clearly influence of ideology in the Netflix Witcher show. Clearly, they made Triss black. There were some very poor decisions, some very ideological, very poor decisions, which I did not like. However, the show was brilliant. I loved it. And Cavill was great, as he was a large part of why it was so good. It was a good example of, yes, the left is fucking awful, but not everything they touch turns to shit. It seems like now they are determined to make it, yes, everything we touch turns to shit, and we're getting rid of the last reason it didn't. And perhaps that was it. Perhaps they really wanted Cavill because he was a good actor, but he demanded that they do it properly. I don't know. That's what it sounds. That's what G-Servitor said. That's what roughly happened. But maybe that's why the first series was even passable. Because of his influence. Let's see, G-Servitor has linked, the Witcher fans want to replace, the Witcher fans want Netflix to replace Henry Cavill GF drama, not sure what that means. Henry Cavill's current girlfriend's old blackface photo is angered by fans of The Witcher. That's very poorly worded. I assume this is translated. So that's pretty funny. So his current girlfriend has a blackface photo. Do we have the photo? God, there's a fucking change.org petition.
Oh, please post. All right, no, this was posted into live chat, right? The article.
Yeah. Okay, so here's something. Henry Cavill. This person on Twitter says Henry Cavill has horrible taste in women. First, Gina. Now this new one. 3 billion women on the planet. So he's whining that someone else likes someone he doesn't. So here is a picture of her not wearing black face, wearing black body. Still my favorite shot of Natalie taken in Africa when she was shooting a television show. She took the time to make an advertisement promoting clean water for the people there. Not sure why she is... excuse me. Not sure why she is seemingly badly photoshopped onto the body of a real black person. That's kind of odd. Maybe she has some odd racial obsessions regardless if she's not a total cuck. His, what looks like Henry Cavill, and I assume her, she kind of looks like she's a bit of a SJW, actually, but looks can be deceiving. That might not be true. And if this is the reason that people are pissed off at her, honestly, again, she might have been doing this for lefty race perspective reasons. It might just be the fact that she didn't virtue signal in time, and now it's too late. Now they have decided that she is the enemy. And possibly because Henry Cavill man bad. So, like, again, are we being swindled into liking Cavill? It's looking like it's stacking up. The fraud would have to be more and more complex at this point. It's looking like fucking no. Because if so, which is a sort of a out there idea anyway, then they would surely want to keep him in The Witcher. Of course, maybe there's something bigger planned, but again, this theory is getting more and more out there. We probably aren't being swindled. He probably is kind of based. The wording in this is very bad. It seems like it has been written by foreign language speaker. Let's see. I don't want any spoilers. I don't want the plot. Currently, the petition has received less than 50 signatures. The petition replace Henry Cavill on Netflix as The Witcher on change.org states. It states the following. Henry Cavill, the actor of Netflix's popular program The Witcher, is dating Natalie Viscuso, a lady dressed in African indigenous traditional clothes while filming a television show in Namibia. She was 25 years old at the time. Why does that matter? Her circle of pals casually uses the N-word. That's interesting. If Henry Cavill can identify with this group, it is a safe bet that his ideas aren't too far off. He argues that the people you hang out with are a mirror of you. Turns out Henry Cavill is based. His divisive statements, no, let's be very clear. What you're doing right now, change.org petition writer, is divisive. Henry Cavill being friends with people who are willing to make offensive jokes is unifying. The offensive jokes might divide some people's anuses, but that's their problem. His divisive statements in Man of the World magazine were widely publicized and severely criticized, they go on to say. He questioned whether or not the Oscars diversity effort was racist. Now, that's interesting. Coming at the left's ideas from the perspective of it's racist implies to me that while Cavill might not be near the tip of the spear like us, and generally in this community we tend not to use the term racist because it's far too charged by the left and not a good strategy anyway. It seems like a cheap trick. But someone like Cavill, who may not be as far into it, is probably just speaking from the perspective of the last time there was sanity, 90s and noughties, essentially. He's saying probably racist in the same sense that judge by content of character, not by color of skin. Essentially, he is using the word racist to mean anti-meritocratic attitudes in terms of race, which is exactly the problem with the left in terms of race. So I would argue he probably, by that, has the same opinions as many of us, at least on a basic level, about race, even though he is using the language of the left. The petition goes on to say, perhaps the solution is to have more diversity among the members of the Academy. But does this imply that there would be more black nominations if there were more black Academy members? Isn't that racist and all of this? Who fucking cares? This is the rabbit hole you get into. Everyone has a different fucking definition of racist, and just calling someone racist is a bigger detriment than winning the argument anyway. So why bother messing around with the word? It is very cancerous. It is the antithesis of real conversation to mess with that word. Let me zoom in a bit. Get this a bit larger. There we go. They go on to say, I believe Henry Cavill should attend school and study racism. Yes, because schools now teach racism, which probably is a cancer in itself. The idea of teaching racism, especially if taught from the modern left's conception, is very not different at all from the Hitler Youth. The idea of teaching the kids of the day the establishment orthodoxies, new fads, which of course is also happening, They say it has a toll on individuals when the folks, anyone using folks these days is a leftist, unless they're from the deep south and have no conception of politics, which is good for them, to be honest. He hangs out with, utter the N-word out, or performs a blackface as his girlfriend did. Now, again, it wasn't blackface, it was distinctly white. The body was black, and it wasn't her body. It didn't look like her body anyway. Although, to be fair, I know what they mean. However, what they mean is stupid. His open contempt for the African American community, which is something that you can't even go close to postulating, should not be accepted. If you share my sentiments, they say, please join me in signing this petition. I demand that Netflix remove him from the program immediately. Yeah, so it's what we've seen before. And I don't doubt, if anything, this would make him even more based. Confirm to him even more. Wow, the people that disagree with me are like exclusively cunts. And then it would just keep happening. Every single person that disagreed with him would just be a total arse about it. And then people who he had been told all his life were evil end up being actually pretty reasonable. And not necessarily because they agree with him. Maybe they don't. But they end up being pretty reasonable about it. They end up supporting him regardless. So if anyone has the opportunity to intercede on someone screeching at him and show him that there are people that support the vague direction he appears to be going in the culture war, that would be great, I think. G-Servitor says, the clay body paint was applied by the villagers she was helping. It's a cultural norm for women to wear it in public there, regardless of race. It's apparently a form of modesty and beauty. Then, again, I will give my opponent their strongest position, then analyze from there, because there's almost always a way out if they are wrong. But usually, not even often, just usually, I am being too generous. And if what you've just said there, G-Servitor, is correct, which I can believe, which very well might be, then, yeah, again, I have been too generous. Yes, indeed, Vil. Vil says blackface is a specific thing, not broadly face paint. Exactly. Get your fucking face painted at a carnival with a big, like, tiger. And then suddenly you're blackface. You're appropriating black culture, and you're mocking them, and you're doing a minstrel show because blacks are tigers.
So I'm taking this in the same sense as someone confused the Norwegian flag before being the Confederate flag. It's just a bunch of people that don't really know what's happening culturally, just accusing someone of blackface.
Yeah. The Norwegian flag is a red cross with a white outline and a blue background, I think. Right? Which is similar to the Confederate flag, except rotated 45 degrees and with stars all throughout it. So someone mistaking the two is not a million miles off. It's not like mistaking the French or Russian flag, which are the same colors but a totally different pattern for the Confederate flag. But it is wrong. It's obviously wrong. Like they probably have not seen it or committed it to memory properly. They just recognize the approximate shape. And the colors, the blue and the red, are actually inverted from the two, I think. Am I wrong with the Norwegian flag? Is the Norwegian flag blue center, red field, blue cross? Okay, fair enough, Roger. My mistake then. In that case, the colors are the same as the Confederate flag, but the direction and the stars are not the same. Right. Vil, just so you know, putting it with the spoiler thing does not prevent it from showing up on the stream. However, it doesn't matter. Maybe I should change the code so it does, actually, but then it would just not show up at all, rather than me being able to click it. Right. So what was the first thing we had? It was this. Let's actually read this now. This thing on Cabal and Mass Effect. Because it sounds like he has just been kicked out of The Witcher, and now he wants to do some good with something else. That, again, that would be my idealistic interpretation of this. So Henry Cavill says he prefers adaptations to be less changed from the source when speaking about his interest in a live-action Mass Effect TV series, and this is from 4 days ago. Henry Cavill made his opinions on live-action adaptations perfectly clear while discussing his interest in a live-action Mass Effect TV series. Chat, press 1 if you think Cavill would make a pretty good Shepard. Speaking to Games Radar during press rounds for The Witcher Series 2, which I suppose is the example that's important here. The Justice League star was Justice League? Oh yeah, of course he was Superman. Was asked if he wanted to be involved in the Mass Effect TV series. Very much so, yeah, Cabal stated, with the caveat, all depending on how they're executing it. See, he's developed better standards as a result of being mistreated on the Witcher set. It's what it sounds like. Again, I may be being idealistic here. I'm postulating before knowing for sure if that's what it is, but on the basis that might be the case. That appears to be the optimistic outlet here. To Cavalier Krogan, very good, right? The world of adaptation can be heavy or light, he says. When I like a product, I prefer the adaptation to be less changed from the source, so it all depends. That's a good answer. He then reiterated his desire to talk about joining the show. I think it's found a home, hasn't it? If the series finds a home, I would love to have a conversation. Weird way of putting it, but okay. No, there's a picture of what was his name? The something man, the elusive man. That was it. Looks a bit like Cabal, but Cabal makes more sense to be Shepard, obviously. It's rumored to have indeed found a home. Deadline reported in late November of this year that Amazon Studios were nearing a deal to develop a BioWare-developed video game franchise. You mean, whatever, a movie adaptation of the video games, I assume he means. Amazon Studios head Jennifer Salke didn't confirm anything, but did reveal the company has plans to invest in a number of different fantasy genres. She explained, "You will see us continuing to invest in fantasy genre of all kinds. We have a genre-focused team on the ground in studios who are ties, etc., etc. Bullshit. Now, Amazon has created one good show that I know of, The Grand Tour. I don't know if any of the other shit is any good. But honestly, it kind of seems like Cavill is a force for making these things better. So I would have to support this idea until a better one comes along. Especially because he seems to be out of The Witcher. Again, if Witcher Series 2 features Cavill, I will probably watch the whole thing and enjoy it as much as I did Series 1 if it's any good. If Witcher Series 3 doesn't, I might not even bother watching it. But I might watch the one episode and see if the new guy is anywhere near as good. Probably won't be. Sondra says Cavill is the legit Sigma grind set nerd. Kinda, yeah. He kind of seems like the nerd who has all the right nerdy interests, but also works out like crazy and is a top actor and good with the ladies and all that. So like he's rolled a 10 on everything, basically. Driven, why do you and one or two other people keep saying that? What is that reference? Daka says the elusive man was voiced by Martin Sheen. You could probably get him on the cheap these days to just play the character he voiced. Sure. I don't know anything about Martin Sheen. I've heard the name, though. Right. Let's see what's up next. So there's a sign and a protest here, which is clearly somewhere where they speak English, which says, at this point, I would feel safer if coronavirus held a press conference telling us how it's going to save us from the government. Yes, not much to add to that. About right.
And before that sign from like DC.
Yeah, maybe. It's got to the state of being that bad that yes, it is actually more sensible to fear the government in not just long term, which is normal, but the immediate term than it is to fear the virus. You probably would rather get the virus in its worst form than get the government in your home. G7 has linked some pictures of villagers with body paint. Thank you for putting those breasts on my stream. No, it's fine. Okay, Roger has linked GIF. Right, says it's a reference to an old comedy series on YouTube I wanted to show you sometime. Okay, fair enough. And then Daka has linked to a video featuring it. Okay, fine. Right, next thing. The only opinion that matters. Now, I don't know if this is true, but I find myself kind of hoping it is, because this is so cringe. From Bob Chipman. He says, Marvel Studios would present us a world wherein Peter Parker, a Rittenhouse-style vigilante who openly helps the cops, gets rewarded with a nice chocolate female. Whereas in reality, those of us on the actual left get nothing. It's just not right. This reads like a parody. Especially the second paragraph. So, I would like to, before I get into the obvious points, shadowy, yes. Before I get into the obvious point, the obvious problems with this, I would like to note something more minor, more esoteric, and possibly more revealing, actually, but at least somewhat revealing, is on the third line there, he has used the word whom, when I'm pretty sure you're supposed to use the word who there. Whom openly helps. Who openly helps? I think just who. I might be wrong on that. But if I am correct that is wrongly used, then that would indicate someone who is eager to make himself sound more intelligent than he is. Someone that says, you now must play a game of Movie Bob or Nazi, indeed. Whomstov. True. So, where do we even fucking start with this? I tell you what, Zane, do you have any analysis to offer to this before I dig in?
Currently no, but I am trying to confirm this to be true or not right now.
Nice, base, thank you. Chat. Do we start with chocolate female? Do we start with the left getting nothing? Do we start with Peter Parker being Rittenhouse? Helping the police? Where do we start? What's the juiciest of those 4 points? Because they're all pretty juicy. I'm having trouble figuring out which one is the most interesting. I suppose we can do it chronologically. Peter Parker is not very similar to Rittenhouse, no. Now, they're similar in their intent. They both intend to do good. They both go to places intending to kill no one and to help people, which is verifiably what Rittenhouse was doing that day. Whether necessarily he intended to, I believe he did. But verifiably, that's what he was doing there until he was attacked. Now, Spider-Man does sometimes start the fights, but usually because someone else is committing a crime, and that's understandable. Rittenhouse did not start any fights, even when people were committing crimes. Rittenhouse was attacked 3 different times by 3 different assailants, unprovoked by each individual assailant, and then defended himself properly in every case. Rittenhouse is actually morally and ethically higher up than Spider-Man, because while Spider-Man is a vigilante, but is very careful to do it in an ethical way, usually, Rittenhouse is not a vigilante, but was still very careful to self-defend himself in an ethical way, and an effective way too. The other main difference is that Rittenhouse uses a gun, whereas Spider-Man does not. But I mean, the answer there is it's the fucking real world. And Rittenhouse doesn't have superpowers, which makes him even more courageous, arguably. So, saying that Rittenhouse and Peter Parker are the same, again, Bob, it kind of sounds like you're trying to denounce Spider-Man entirely here. Which is an odd move for someone who bases their career such that it is on comics. But okay, fine. If you are saying that, then you are complimenting Spider-Man by raising him to the level of Rittenhouse. For he is currently, though good, he is not at the soaring heights of Rittenhouse's ethical and effectual and courageous standards. So I suppose that's the first point. He also said that Rittenhouse is a vigilante, which of course isn't true. Helps the police. Now, the police didn't help Kyle much, did they, on the day? Kyle helped them, quote unquote, by wiping out some dangerous convicted criminals, including a paedophile, a wife beater, and a burglar. The burglar only got his arm wiped out, but the other 2 were the worst anyway. Helped the police in a long sense by wiping them out of society. Not that I'm advocating for vigilante killings, not that that's what it was either. But still, ultimately, utilitarianly, helped to reduce crime, most likely. But yes, the helping the police. So if the police's job are to maintain order, then helping to maintain order by stopping crimes does that become bad to stop crimes just because it helps the police? Do you know it also helps everyone else, Bob? A society that doesn't have constant criminal activity is almost certainly going to be a more stable society. No, stable, not necessarily better, but there are extremes where it's not, but just reducing crime probably isn't going to result in it getting worse in almost any way. So then there's that. The fact that he's helping the police, like, Bob would, from that, it makes it sound like Bob would be happy to see crime waves and spikes of crime everywhere, mass chaos, just because it would make the police's lives more difficult. And when asked, he might just say yes, because that's the kind of guy Bob is. He is he has the traits of an autist and a psychopath. Probably just an autist, though, but a very maladapted one. Let's see what else we've got. Gets rewarded with a nice chocolate female. Now, that's interesting, isn't it? There's actually two things there. One is the commodification of women, which, separately from the objectification, is a little different. Is still not always bad, but from someone who is a radical leftist and who, I'm just going to go out on a limb here, has not enjoyed the company of women particularly regularly. Bob, I'm guessing. What would you reckon, chat? Someone like that, commodifying females like this, as he's done here, is probably a major virgin signal. And that is subjective, but I'm going out on a limb, and I think I'm right. Chat, press 1 if you would actually agree. Not just because you hate Bob, but because in general you think that actually makes sense. Rewarded with comes off as jealousy as well, which is kind of why. And then chocolate female. Someone who is virtue signaling as Bob does, from the perspective of the left, probably doesn't want to be using that kind of comedic language to describe race, right? Now, probably what he's trying to do there is to imply that because she is being commodified in the show, she is therefore like chocolate, a commodity, a sweet commodity. But the commodification itself comes across as a virgin move, so this works into that as well. Which just really begs the question, was it worth it, Bob? Was it worth that little dig at what you perceived as the commodification of that woman, which probably wasn't actually, and was just your perception because you were a jealous virgin? So was it worth it? Because if it wasn't worth it, then what you've done is you've used a comic term to describe her race, not something that bothers me, but something that probably bothers you and your friends. A comic term to describe her race, or maybe infantilizing her race, or at least patronizing her or others of her race. Again, things that would bother you and yours, not necessarily me. I don't mind that it's offensive. In fact, I would argue that if you can be more offensive more often with opinions that are not gutter tier trash, then I would appreciate that. But this just seems like it seems like radical leftist edge, which is to say not edgy at all, just slightly more just on the edge of what their own side will accept. So you have the heart of an edgelord, but the mind of a total moron who is determined to conform and to look like a nice person. I chose my words there specifically because this is the kind of thing that someone would do if they wanted to worm their way into the good favor of particularly women. I get that impression from him, but perhaps people in general. So there's that. And then he says, and this is possibly the worst part, he says, whereas in reality, those of us on the actual left get nothing. It's just not right. Now, that last phrase there, it's just not right, makes it sound like that entire last paragraph is parody, that he's not being serious, which maybe so. But I would find it difficult to believe you if you were saying the rest of this wasn't serious, Bob. Maybe the last paragraph isn't. But still, despite that, it does make it seem like you are actually genuinely jealous of other people's success with women. And making it about politics sounds like one of the biggest copes I've ever seen, frankly. It sounds like, Bob, it sounds like you believe that you deserve access to women because you are on the left. That's what the words you have written essentially mean. I don't know if that's what you actually think, and that entire paragraph might have been parody, but that's what the words you've written essentially mean. And that's, well, as many on the left would say, not a good look. And so I'd be surprised, really, if you fit in well with anyone on your side, and perhaps that is why you are not only so vitriolic against your opponent in a desperate attempt to fit into your side, but why you don't. Because you're maladapted even to conform with the worst people in society. And what does that say about you, Bob? Desperate to conform with the worst in society, but constantly failing to do so. I can scarcely think of anything worse. Yes, chat are posting plenty of nice dirt on on Matt. No, Matt, sorry. I'm getting him confused with mundane Matt, I wonder why, with Bob Chipman. I have seen most of this stuff. Speaking of seeing, I see that Di is around. Chat, press 1 if you'd like Di to come on the show. I wonder if anyone will want Di on the show. Yes, Summon of Vox, I don't doubt it. Di says 2. Di doesn't want Di on the show. Oh no. Well, Di, if you want to come on, just ping me and I'll drag you in. And come on later as well if you like. Zane really wants an opportunity to mock Di on air.
I have gone through IMDb and Metacritic because IMDb is connected to Metacritic now. I haven't been able to find the review, so it is possible that he may have yeeted it.
Possible. Yes, he may have deleted it, or it may have been a parody. December 15th, 2021. It's very recent, so he would have to have deleted it very recently.
I am currently going through archive.is to see if I can find it there.
It looks like someone is saying that there is a different one. Experts familiar with Cinema Roberts' thinking have looked at the evidence and concluded that the original screenshot is real. Possibly, but here is a review from Bob Chipman from not the same day, actually. December 15th on that one, December 17th on this one. Right, so actually, this may be evidence that it was real.
Now, I was looking at like publications, so let me go through user-generated ones, because maybe he's
sure, yeah,
no longer listed on their critic reviews.
So this one he's written says, Hollywood's most awkward co-parenting exercise concludes, for now, in an overstuffed but by no means unsatisfying feature that's one part payoff machine for 20 years worth of Spider-Man history and one part way too meta franchise management exercise. What a fucking meaningless bunch of tripe. Is anyone else not understanding what the fuck he means? And I don't think it's because I'm just too thick to get it, but maybe that's what Bob would say, but then Bob, maybe that's why maybe that's why a lot of people don't fucking like you, because you're not very effective at communicating your ideas, for one thing. But again, this is not the same time. It does a bit about Spider-Man, and he is giving a good review here, whereas it was a bad one before. You've made Di Black the ultimate crime. Di says, I don't mind coming on, though I don't know anything on the topic of talking about. Who even is this Bob? Well, we'll have to introduce you at some point, Di. I'm not that familiar with him either, but I have heard the legends, and they are enough. Imagine, well, as I said, like, the reason this screenshot, which might be fake, I'm very happy to admit it might be fake, the analysis I gave is for anyone that might say this, for general points, for the principles, but Bob might not have done. But for the clarity of what kind of person this is, if this is a parody, this screenshot, then it is definitely believable as Bob's work, even if it is a parody. He is a very blatantly self-blatantly left-wing movie reviewer who has openly advocated for eugenics, which I know will put him up a rank in your books, Di, but not necessarily in anyone else's, or even the left's, actually. He is extremely vitriolic against anyone that is not directly on his side. Essentially, he is a quintessential, self-absorbed, Bing Yahoo leftist. So, Di, you wouldn't have to know anything about this topic. Bringing you on would be for as much or as little of the show as you like, and we will go on to different topics soon. This isn't the main topic in the slightest. There's lots of other things to cover. So just to be sure, ping me if you want to come on at any time. We will go on to the next thing very soon. So, I was thinking of something else to say, but I forgot what it was. Yes. Yes, talk about that later. So, next thing. So this, yes, there might be something to this. From the New York Times in 1995, article titled, Iran may be able to build an atomic bomb in 5 years, US and Israeli officers fear. From Los Angeles Times in 2003, Iran closes in on ability to build a nuclear bomb. From Reuters 2012, Iran on brink of nuclear bomb in 6 to 7 months, Netanyahu. And then the Jerusalem Post in August 25th, 2021, Gantz says Iran is 2 months away from nuclear bomb. So, there is often nuance behind these things. The patterns that you see on the surface are not always what they appear on the deeper levels. Perhaps there have been constant efforts to abate their progress towards a nuclear bomb. However, that does seem unlikely to be the reason for this, especially given that this is over the span of 26 years. It seems much more likely that as a matter of national policy, and not a national policy I can respect, but a national policy that I can understand a nation implementing, Israel has spun the yarn that Iran is a serious, imminent nuclear threat to both the world and to Israel themselves, repeatedly. Now, chat, given the option, would you estimate, press 1 for, there's probably nuance here that doesn't really incorporate anyone else's guilt or manipulation. Press 2 if this is probably manipulative national policy on the part of Israel. Hello, Di. Do you have an opinion on Israel?
I mean,
You don't have to answer that if you don't want to.
I don't want to get labeled as something I shouldn't be.
Abased. Now, I've got a preview of my stream on my second monitor here. So you guys appear when you're talking most prominently on my second monitor, which means that when I'm looking over here, chat, I'm actually looking at the guests, both on the stream's overlay, it looks like I'm looking at the guests, and in real life, which actually I think is quite a good effect. So when Di starts talking and I look over there, at her profile picture showing up, I'm actually looking at where she is on the screen as well.
Well done. Well done.
I will say these articles reminds me similar to the climate change articles.
Yeah.
Of, like what, every 10
Exactly.
years there's an article about saying that 10 years from now everything's going to be underwater.
There is that, yeah. Yes, I wonder if it's not just a Israeli trick, if it is perhaps a common strategy of the press in general that the Israelis are simply using here.
Israel doesn't lie. What are you talking about? They would never.
Well, then they're not a very smart nation if they don't lie. Sadly, it is necessary. Sometimes.
Oh, of course, of course.
They may be pretty good at it, though. I'm not sure. It seems like they're getting a lot of benefits from a lot of gibs,
It just
regardless.
depends on what they're lying about, you know.
Yes, that's the only real question. Much like politicians. I met someone on a dog walk recently who again, like this is the kind of thing I fear someone thinking of me. Where we were talking about my dog briefly, and I was talking about the fact that he's very willful and independent and does his own thing, but I think he's still, fairly intelligent, more than you would estimate, given that he just sometimes doesn't fucking care what you're saying, not that he doesn't understand it. And then the guy said, yeah, he probably just, only cares about himself, just like Boris Johnson. It's like out of fucking nowhere talking about politics. And that's what I mean about something I want to avoid people thinking of me as, that I'm obsessed with politics, that I can only think about politics. And that's what this guy seemed to be about. And I've forgotten the reason I brought this up, but what a dick, right?
But do you like Boris Johnson?
Not much, but slightly more than the alternatives available. We will talk about that, by the way. There's a lot of UK news, and most of it not good.
Yeah, no, I've been seeing a lot of memes of people being like, "Oh, look at him, his soul is gone," and there's just a picture of him, his head down, looking super depressed.
Yeah, they will obviously find pictures that look like that, but it might also be true. For a quick
after
preview,
he got COVID, he suddenly was,
it did
his
seem to
demeanor
change him a bit,
changed.
yeah. As a sneak preview of what we'll be talking about later, chat, the Brexit minister has recently resigned, which is almost the worst news I could imagine, actually, at least on that scale of problem, of story. So we'll get into that soon. My optimism about, yes, Boris has all manner of problems, but at least he's doing Brexit well. That era may be about to come to a close, sadly. We'll see. And also,
Yes.
Rishi Sunak, who is the Treasury Secretary, I think, the money man, he's also appears to be angling to take Boris's job. And I don't know much about him, but I just get the impression that he will be awful, that he will be essentially the Sadiq Khan of the parliament, of the government. So,
No, my condolences if that's the case.
Yeah, it's looking pretty bad. It could go very bad.
They've been also, I think I told you before about what they're doing with Ireland as well, the EU, and trying to, if you buy anything from the UK, trying to get it into Ireland now, they add in extra tax that you have to pay to get it delivered, which was never done before.
Yeah.
But they're doing it as a way to try and punish the UK for leaving, but in turn it is mostly punishing us as well.
Yeah.
It's been a nightmare.
Yeah. Daka has mentioned the notion that was a news story recently, but I didn't cover it because I think it's fucking irrelevant. Almost irrelevant. The notion that that Boris and his cabinet had a Christmas party in 2020 when there were lockdowns around Christmas. Now, I care to the extent that it is hypocritical. If the very people telling the rest of us that we couldn't do that were doing that, does not speak well of their characters. It is hypocritical. But it's not particularly consequential. And making that a big deal, honestly, to me, seems more like a strategy to get rid of Boris by any means, rather than something actually consequential. There are far more consequential issues in the world. Yes, politicians are hypocrites. Happens all the time. But these are politicians who are slightly above the norm of shitty tier, contradictory and just evil, corrupt people. Slightly above that level. And they're the ones taking shit for it. It seems more likely to be a ploy to get rid of them than...
That could very well be the case. I think, though, the problem is when you have politicians like that, literally taking people's freedoms away.
Yes.
And not allowing them to do things, and then they get shown doing the exact same thing that they're not allowing people to do. Yeah. It's kind of like it's the same problem everywhere, though. Like it's the same in Ireland with their thing.
In the US, plenty. Pelosi getting her hair done.
There's so many politicians that have been shown to be breaking the quote unquote rules.
Yeah.
And they get nothing for it though.
It is unacceptable. It is completely wrong. And Pelosi, a bunch of other US governors in Democrat states, no Republicans that I know of, should also be punished duly. Even legally. Correctly, legally, by their own laws. Legally punished for what they did. And if that was happening across the board, then maybe I would accept that happening. I would have to, principally, accept that happening to Boris as well. The problem is that it's only happening to Boris, who is, as I said, full of problems, but still a bit better than the norm, the globalist, shit-tier, evil, corrupt politicians. He's a bit better than that. But it's only happening to him. Okay. Right, I see.
Well, I think our sense is that nobody should be getting punished for simply meeting up with their families at this point. Like, it's ridiculous anyway. None of this should be enforced.
Definitely agree that, yes, the first level of this is there shouldn't have been restrictions on meeting up at Christmas. Fuck that. The second level is if there are going to be, then at least the government should not be hypocrites about that. They're the ones enforcing it. They should be forced to live by the same standards that everyone else is. But
Of course, they
that
have money
seems,
and power. We're
Yeah.
plebs. We don't get to decide that.
well, actually, we do because you
But
don't
we're,
have.
we're not doing anything.
Yeah,
is
you
what
don't
I'm
have.
saying.
Actually, you know what? We're talking about this now. I will skip to this story because this is interesting. I think it's this one. Yeah, I don't know why this has gone. Well, the background has gone white. Let's see if. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, we have that. So from the Express, which is a right-leaning, or actually, I let's briefly explain the bias. They appear to be kind of like the gateway pundit of the UK, except not aware of social justice ideology. They will adopt it readily, frequently, but they are also very pro-Brexit. It's like boomers taking up some of the issues on our side of the culture war. They don't really understand the culture war, but they agree on some of the issues. That's best I can say for the Express. And journalistic integrity on roughly the same level as the Gateway Pundit as well. But at least they will say things, again, that few in Britain will say. So I usually use them as a source. But I don't trust them particularly. So it says, Boris under pressure as poll finds over half of Britons would ignore Christmas COVID rules. Now, can we have a based, please? Because at least my nation can occasionally get something right. Emergency COVID rules would be ignored by a huge number of Britons, according to a poll of over 12,000 people. I wonder if that was just Express readers, because that would tend towards a yes answer. And look, this guy's the health minister, by the way. Look at him. The fucking
Well, polls
ghoul.
can't be trusted anyway because they've been shown to delete polls that go against their narrative and all sorts of things like that.
Of course. It would, of course, depend hugely on who wrote the poll.
Yeah.
But, however, worth noting that if someone was trying to, if the usual suspects were trying to create a poll to manipulate public opinion, this is the opposite of the result they would put on that poll.
Mm.
Although, if we are going a bit deeper, if they wanted to create a poll to incur a perception of the situation that was along these lines, only in a section of the population, like, for example, Express readers, this is what they would write. If they were trying to essentially psychologically entrap people into thinking, well, no one else is following the rules, I read that Express article, therefore I won't follow the rules, in order to get them arrested. This is what they would do. So that is a bit more of a deeper theory, and that probably isn't the case, but also worth considering.
No, it's the same over here because they tried to put in these restrictions. So if you're unvaccinated, you're not allowed to leave your house for 60 days. You're not allowed to go and have Christmas with your family. But then it comes to like, how are they going to enforce that exactly? You know,
they're not going to enforce on a wide scale.
You know, like
you might get unlucky, and get caught, but it's not likely. Especially like, if you're at all careful, then you rise far above the slowest of the pack. So you're much less likely to be caught. So do not crime, chat. Do not crime. But if you are hypothetically in a video game going to meet your family for Christmas, then just be smart.
Imagine having to say that though. Like the fact of like, oh, you want to see your family?
It's insane.
Just to make sure they don't find out
it's
that
insane.
You're leaving your house. Fucking crazy.
It's insane. We are going to have to live through these times, though. It's the best we've got.
And we have to
just
be part of the solution how quick. 2 years, and look where we are. Like it's just crazy how quick it seems to have gone.
Yeah.
But I suppose to people that have been keeping an eye, to them it's not quick. This has been something that has been building for years, but it just for normal people, right? It just seemed like it was 1 year. It's like, oh, just flatten the curve. The next year, it's like you can't leave your home.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was all within 2020. I mean, the lockdown restrictions now are worse than they were a month ago, but in 2020 they were worse still. The thing is that I got the impression both from regular people, from politicians, and from them and from everyone. I got the impression that people weren't following them completely. There was quite a lot of distaste for it, and it was growing. And so maybe that's why they had a big old break period where they didn't impose anything, and now they figure, well, let's do it for Christmas, because if we can fuck up Christmas, we can fuck up anything. Yay.
Well, I was saying this to my grandmother that they're going to be doing this around every winter cycle, because we've seen that hospital going to hospital every winter time, you'll see spikes, right? But what they're going to do is now they're going to turn every time winter rolls around and more people end up going to hospital. They're going to just attribute that to COVID, and they're going to use that every year as a reason to lock down.
Well, it's not a coincidence, or maybe it was coincidence, but it is true that the tests conflate flu and COVID. Exactly what they would need to do exactly that.
Yeah, because they were doing the exact same thing here, and it was like people were pointing out, going back before COVID, right, that every time of year things would spike because they were trying to show that, oh, look how many people are in hospital. But then they started removing beds to make it seem like ICU was crowded. And the only reason it was crowded was because they removed beds. And, doing that around winter time when more people are going to the hospital, it's going to make it seem and look like things are falling apart when it's always been like that.
Yeah.
And they're just making it worse.
Yeah.
Getting rid of nurses and doctors that won't comply, removing beds, using statistics that have been the same for years of people in hospital as another means of a scare tactic to get people like, look, so many people are in hospital. We can't give them beds. We can't do this. Just nonsense. All lies.
Yeah.
Anyone that actually looks into it.
Yeah. So, the article reads, Omicron is sweeping through the nation at a faster rate than any previous variant, but, of course, they don't mention that it's a lot less dangerous. With a record high of 93,000 COVID cases announced in a 24-hour period over the weekend. I wonder how that stacks up to flu cases announced on average every year. I don't know if that's more or less, actually.
No, we've eradicated the flu, don't you?
Yeah, that's the obvious answer to why are there almost no flu cases, because it was eradicated, just happened to be, it's fine. But I don't know if that's more or less than the flu, but I'm readily happy to admit that COVID exists and that it has probably followed the natural course that viruses do, especially after 2 years in the wild, that it becomes less dangerous but more infective. If that's the case, this is exactly what you'd expect to see. You're not going to see
kill the host, gas.
Yeah,
really?
Exactly. You're not going to see an uptick of actual deaths. Not that you'll fucking know, because the death stats are meaningless, because it's 30 days after a positive diagnosis. 30 years.
You got hit by a car, you tested positive for COVID, you died of COVID.
Exactly. And the tests don't work properly either. One of them is not much better than random, and the other conflates with the flu during fucking flu season. So you can't trust either. You absolutely cannot trust either the case numbers or the death numbers. But even then, you should expect there to be cases because of even if we assume that the stats were completely accurate, you should expect there to be a lot of cases because we've apparently got this new variant. And it's very virulent, but not dangerous.
Wasn't there talk of them not being, like the normal COVID test wasn't able to test for it as well?
I didn't hear about that.
Or something?
But that might be true,
okay.
Yeah.
Or like that, because I remember people talking about how you have a virus so deadly that you can't test for it and you don't know you have it in some cases. And it's super infectious, but no one's really dropping dead. But it's something to worry about, I guess. Even though it's, I don't know. The whole thing is very obvious to me what's happening. They're just, again, and using it as a way to control the population. Can't get them to do stuff. Can have fun at Christmas. See how far they can go,
Chad, it is your duty to have fun at Christmas. It is your duty to go and meet your family. Everyone post the cheer is non-negotiable meme.
I feel so sorry for those, though, going through a situation where, like, their family doesn't want to meet them because, again, they haven't gotten the vaccine, for instance.
Yeah. Using
that as a reason why you can't see your family is, I feel sorry for anyone that's going through that.
Yeah. I'm lucky that I I don't really enjoy getting together with family for Christmas. It's nothing against the family, it's just me. I'm not particularly social. And that with the inconvenience of having a dog here, and various other things, as well as me refusing to take part in a lot of the orthodox trappings of furor of the virus, for a lot of factors, essentially. It won't be much of a problem for me, but I can definitely empathize with those for whom it is more of a problem for various reasons.
Yeah, I'm getting ready to basically have a fight at the moment because, God forbid, I'm trying to go and get food for Christmas for the family, right? But I'm not going to be wearing a mask. I refuse. I refuse to continue this nonsense. But I can already tell that I'm going to have problems trying to go in and get groceries just because of that. So that's going to be fun.
I wonder, would it help if you tried a small local shop rather than a larger supermarket? Or would that be the opposite of helping?
Well, the problem is just it's too expensive doing that for Christmas. Because again, there's a lot of people in the house every time Christmas comes around. It's like over 15 people. So going to a normal supermarket out here, trying to get the necessary amount of food for that will be twice the price as of going to the bigger kind of little Aldi shop. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand. So, in my experience, in simulations I have run on my computer, when I go into places like Aldi, Morrison's, which are two of the shops that are nearby here, they don't care about masks. Now, I don't know if that's an indication of where I am. Maybe it's different in Ireland than in England, like significantly different. But I've not actually had bad experiences with that. When I walked into Morrison's earlier, I entered the door without a mask, and I know where the security station is, just by the door. I looked over to the guy at the security station, black guy in a mask, and I smiled in a completely normal way. No, I hope it wasn't particularly creepy or any weird or anything. I just smiled at the guy. I know you're imagining it now. You're enjoying the image. But no, the thing is, he could see my smile because I wasn't wearing a mask. I mean, in the simulation, naturally, I wasn't wearing a mask. And he didn't do anything. I just continued walking, continued with my shopping. There was one or two other people out of probably about 30 I saw in there who weren't wearing masks. And by the way, a month or two ago, that was the other way around pretty much. It was more like, 5 in 30 would be wearing a mask.
Yeah. Usually out here, I don't wear masks, right? But it's become an ordeal. I don't like talking to people, right? We're similar in that way. I don't want to. Yeah, and a lot of the time, like my grandma's like, "Oh, it'd just be so much easier and less hassle if you just wear the mask and all this." And it's like, but no, I don't want to do that. But at the same time, I don't want to go out and be accosted every time because I'm not wearing one. It's just not fun all around. It'd be great if everyone just left each other alone, but that's not the climate we're living in now.
I think, Di, you're smart enough to see that short-term hassle is a smaller price than long-term hassle. And that if you refuse to wear the mask, perhaps you could have a positive influence on society such that there will not be grievous hassling in the future.
Yeah.
Even though you might get some minor hassling, you're willing to endure that for the long-term benefit.
Yeah, I'm just worried that they're just going to try and kick me out again. They tried to do that in a pharmacy. Of course, I refused to leave, and I got my prescription, and then I left. But it's just unpleasant. It's just an unpleasant experience all around,
I'd be careful refusing to leave because it is private property.
Well, they don't, because I was disabled, and they were asking for proof of disability and all of this other nonsense, which they're not allowed to do.
Okay.
Which is why when I complained to the head of it, they immediately got back to me apologizing for their behavior, because of course they saw a lawsuit. They saw a bunch of lawsuit signs all around.
Fair enough. And did they try and roll you out?
Oh, fuck you. Fuck you piece of shit. But I did get a corporation to literally bend over apologizing to me.
That's good.
So, and the pharmacy tried to contact and apologize to me as well.
We always knew Di is powerful. One letter from an angry potato femoid.
I'm sick of it. I'm fucking sick of it. But because again, not everyone can be like, well, you're exempt. Like, I actually am exempt. Like, I'm missing half a lung, guys. I don't have to wear a mask. And when you talk to a doctor, most of the time because a lot of people have been contacting their GPs to get letters to prove to people and just show them because they don't want to deal with the hassle, right? If somebody's like, "Oh, well, show us the proof," most people will be fine to show the doctor. But most of the doctors you contact are like, "No, you don't actually need to have a letter proving that you're disabled, basically, and anyone asking that of you is breaking the law." Because guess what? Even the emergency COVID restrictions and everything they put in place does not negate the laws already in place to protect those with disability. It doesn't override it. So they are still protected.
I wonder if someone, for example, who had been diagnosed with, ADHD, could perhaps wangle that into a disability which would allow them to avoid restrictions.
Yes, there has been, because there's a lot of cases where people with severe autism or, severe thing like that, having a mask on their face causes, it's mostly in children, causes severe distress. And they have, like, restricting their breathing can cause more of the reaction. They have more of they can have a fit, basically, and it doesn't help them. Yeah. Always wearing that. So there's a lot of parents out there that have been granted access to that kind of thing for their children. I do think in the UK they have that in place. Like in Ireland, they don't have specific certs in place for those exempt, like distributed. But I know in the UK that they have been doing that for people. The people as well have gotten religious exemptions too, I think. But I think that's mostly for the vaccine and not with the mask.
So I suppose, I don't know how long those exemptions are going to last either. At the point that they are forcing them into people's arms, which is the only point at which I will ever get one, they will probably have dismissed the religious exemptions by that point anyway, so probably not worth me trying to bother to get one. But if you're being coerced into it by work rather than physically forced or coerced in some other way, then maybe it is worth seeking religion. Adopt a religion. You don't have to be real necessarily.
In the world we live in, actually being religious might help you in getting away from these restrictions and human rights violations. Funny that.
So, is the answer to can I see your reason for exemption, sir? Is the answer no? And if you ask me again, I'll sue your company. Because I mean, that's kind of what it sounds like. Because yes, they don't get to force you to reveal medical records, UK or US.
Right, and that's the problem. Where if you actually are medically exempt and you're being discriminated against, because that's what it is. Like you don't look disabled, you're not, like let's say you have epilepsy or something like I said, a lung missing, and you can't wear a mask for whatever reason. It's not visible, and you have people there not believing you when you tell them and asking for proof. First of all, asking for proof and then asking for you to leave based on your disability is against the law. And that's why, at least over here, when I mentioned that in the letter I sent, the company was very quick to be apologetic, because if I wanted to take that forward, like, they would be in the wrong.
But that's a lot of money.
But, you know.
That's good, Floyd.
God damn it.
I mean, that pretty much worked over here in the States. There was a guy that was suing his company because they were demanding that he prove vaccination. And the lawyers in them essentially were like, all right, well, can you prove that the rest of your employees don't have things like HIV or hepatitis? And since they can't actually ask for that, they just dropped the case against the employee.
Mm-hmm. I do know in America there has been a lot of people like that have won in those cases where people are or companies asking them to prove proof of vaccination, all that kind of stuff, and then people that refused and actually stood their ground, either they were fired for it or treated differently. Especially when they were fired, if you're fired with the vaccination being a problem. Some courts have shown that that's again against the law, but it depends where you are, and it depends on the judge, I think, that you're going to be dealing with as well. At least in America.
Yeah, because that's what we've seen for the past few years. It doesn't matter what the law states; it depends on what the judge thinks.
Yeah. If you have a corrupt judge, which unfortunately is quite the problem in many places, then you're kind of screwed. Which is what we're seeing with the people that, the ones that the insurrection that happened at the Capitol, the people that were arrested, and some of them are only arrested for like misdemeanors, right? They are literally being held as political prisoners at the moment. For anyone not aware. Yeah. But just I'm saying, like, and that's because the judge involved is corrupt and evil and is just literally leaving them in there to rot.
Yeah.
And using COVID as a reason for why they can't push things along, It's ridiculous nonsense.
It is. Yes, Patrick Orr, that F shape was originally used as a double S. Although I'm not sure why they would also put the S on there, if that's the case. But never mind. So, the article, we got through a couple of sentences before having a good conversation. Let's see if we can get through this more. The article continues, documents released by the official Scientific Advisory Group for Emergencies on Saturday indicated restrictions similar in scale to the national lockdown were needed to keep COVID hospital admissions below previous peaks. I don't buy it, nor am I willing to go along with it. The article continues, and advisors have warned the UK could see over 1 million Omicron cases in the UK by the end of the month. Badly worded. But again, how many flu cases do we get per year on average? If anyone has that stat, I'd be curious to know, because I don't know if it'd be as many as 1 million, but it might be. Might be much more than that, actually. Both the Prime Minister and the Health Secretary have refused to rule out any further COVID restrictions. I'm guessing, I reckon there will be more. It's very close to, it's 5 days till Christmas. Cheer is imminent, Chad. It would be, they don't have much time left if they do want to impose restrictions. Probably, I would guess they won't impose restrictions that totally prevent people from doing Christmas. Though there are already plenty, as Di has described, plenty of softer restrictions, social as well as others, which will make Christmas much more difficult, prevent some people from attending entirely, etc.
Mm-hmm.
But I suspect that there will not be a big national lockdown. However, there's nothing to stop that happening afterwards, in January, for example. So yes, let's continue. In a poll of 12,694 Express readers, so yeah, it was Express readers, which does change the poll, sadly, so it's not the majority of the population, it's the majority of the Express readers, and even then it's only about half. Held on December 19th, 52% of voters said that they would ignore emergency COVID rules this Christmas, while just 31% said that they would follow the rules. So that's not a bad margin, assuming that the rules are wrong, which they almost always are and will be. But again, that is Express readers. If you ask the general public, I imagine that you would get a different answer. However, I don't imagine that the answer would be 2% will disobey them and 98% will follow them. I imagine it'd be closer to 30% will disobey and 50% will follow them, with 20% refusing to answer or not knowing, something like that. Which is still not terrible, but it could be a lot better. A significant number of voters, 17%, said their decision to follow or ignore COVID guidance would depend on which rules were put in place by the Prime Minister and scientific advisors. You may follow them by happenstance, actually. I follow the stay in your homes one by happenstance pretty regularly. An Express.co.uk reader nicknamed Brooking0077 said, I've been jabbed 3 times against the virus and I've endured the many lockdowns, so this time I'm not obeying. There will be people that just get sick of it over time. However, there will also be people who, as a result of having done any amount, will go along with that sunk cost fallacy so as not to have been wrong the first time. Which is a sad thing to see, but it will inevitably happen. It's cheese and wine parties all the way for me, another reader, Mark, agreed. I've had 3 COVID jabs, 1 flu jab, and a shingles jab this year, so I wasn't expecting to need any more restrictions. Yes, that's because you were expecting things to be reasonable, not on the pathway to tyranny. And I mean, I said this about the social justice ideology back in 2016. I'm saying about this emergency now that there is something uniquely terrible about this one. This is not simply some esoteric idea that has spread around Tumblr, or this is not just some esoteric or small scale temporary restrictions for your own good. Whether our government is aware of it or not, the handling of COVID and perhaps the release and certainly the cover-up were a grift, or are almost certainly a grift. Similarly to the social justice ideology, appears to be heavily astroturfed, or encouraged by one means or other. So, aiming their comments at the Prime Minister, a voter going by Citizen51 said, "Not this time, Twinkle Toes. No one attacks Christmas. Enough is enough," which is a good statement. Had this idiot introduced proper border quarantine over the year, we would have taken him seriously, they said. The opinion of Express voters, which is a portion of the public, but not the whole thing. The result comes with investigations ongoing over alleged Christmas parties held at Montana last year, which, as I've mentioned, I don't really care about. Shall we return to our introductory stuff, and then we'll come back to the actual stories soon? There are still a few of these to go. We did that. Di, I think you might like this one.
Oh, let me see. Hold on.
So a walking away Doge says, "Women who won't have sex with me deserve to be raped." And then the Doge here says, "Shut the fuck up with your toxic masculinity, you stupid fucking insect." And then they turn around and it's a tranner. Excuse me? It totally changes to, pardon me, miss. Yes, this indeed is the case. This is an age of a social status defining truth, rather than truth defining social status.
It really depends on who they're saying it to, because, like, saying that they're trans could, in fact, just make them violent, depending on the person.
That's true. And I don't mean to imply, by the way, that truth has ever defined social status, but the balance is way off today. At least from where it was a while ago. So, yeah. And I think I have often wondered why people see the 1950s, for example, as an idealistic time, when by almost every statistical measure, I won't say almost every, but by the main markers of quality of life, things are objectively better today. Why then do people see it that way? And why am I sensing that there is something genuine to that? There is something real. It's not merely an idealistic rose-tinted glasses fawning for the past. It is somewhat that. But I think it is simply that we as people and our society are constructed around high trust among individuals in the society in general. And I thought about this before. A lot of systems we have rely on the people in them having good intentions. The 1950s were probably the last time that we had a more successfully high trust society, and it has been reducing since then. And I think that does line up with my conception of the boom-bust cycle. The fact that after a period of experimentation, which we are currently at the apex or perhaps the rock bottom of, you then get a period of consolidation, conservatism, which brings in only the good ideas that were experimented in the last cycle, and then reevaluates, reforms, repositions, regroups. And then you have a period of conservatism. You have a period with very little experimentation, a period that I may not enjoy very much, except that there won't be as much horrendous violations of human dignity on Orwellian levels. So that part I'll like. But it may be less socially free, but it will be less socially free in the direction of conservatism rather than the direction of, if you don't accept our newest viciously anti-human experiment, then you are evil, which I think is much more bearable. And I think that time, if things go well, is possibly coming, much like the 1950s did after a different period of probably a similar pattern before the wars. Hopefully we don't end up with world wars to bring us from one to the other, but it might go that way. But again, if so, like, one reason to stick it out is that we might indeed get a much nicer period, similarly in terms of high trust to the 1950s, but with all the nice technology we like, if we survive.
I think that the technology part is kind of one of the biggest reasons why there's kind of less community all in all. Because like you said, in the 1950s, people would have to kind of meet in person to have something happen, right? Like there would have to be actual like face-to-face interaction. You'd know the people that you're getting close to and the same ideals you have. Now in this day and age, instead of being close to those that live with you, you get close to random people on the internet that could live miles from you, right? So you don't really build a community around yourself. You build a community online, but how much can the online community change anything in reality is going to be interesting to see as we go forward. Like, is it going to bring forth the change we need and expect, or will we always need to kind of come together physically to make change?
So I'm an odd case because I actually prefer it online. I know that's not the majority, but I would also say that at least in our case, we've made something pretty good online. Wouldn't have met you if not for the internet. And I know that's not against what you're saying, but just as a nuanced point. But I think the main point to add to that, which is not an argument against you either, is just it's inevitable. So we have to find a way to live with it.
The reason I brought up, I think, is just like this, there is always going to be a downside to everything, right? And I think technology and making it easier to talk to people, we're seeing one of the downsides to that is our community and those we get close to kind of diminishes because we're not going out more, because we're not actually talking to the people close to us unless we have to. And instead we're living online. Well, like that is one of the downsides to it.
I think when you say we, I know you don't, you probably are specifying the wider community, the society in general. Yes, but I think if you were to be specifying us here in Cabal, I think we have found a decent way to make it work. A far above average hybridization of the things that are important with modern technology and with the values that matter from the past as well, hybridizing them in a way that is practically appropriate for the inevitable technology and structural changes that are happening, but also fitting well enough with the needs of human nature that perhaps what we have discovered here is the correct model going forwards. That the model that most other people have is just wrong, and that eventually they'll adopt a model more like ours, which I agree is less rich than person-to-person contact. But having lost that, you get a lot of other benefits corollary as well. And as long as you can make that work, then society might genuinely improve as a result.
Yeah, no, like when I say like technology has its downsides, of course there's going to be the good sides of it as well. I'm not talking about that. I'm just bringing up one of the main issues and one of the biggest differences I think in this day and age compared to back then is again the community and meeting in person, right? But like as you said, online you can easily organize to have more and more people meet up at a certain place if you wanted to. It's just we're in a process, we're in the in-between of figuring out, like in this day and age, what and how to handle the internet, right? And if we have these bigger corporations getting involved in trying to censor people and remove those meeting places and remove people and access that are trying to create community and things like that is where we see the issue here. It's kind of like it's going to be interesting how we can deal with that kind of thing going forward on the internet. Like if that's going to be what the war is, not as we knew it before, but like online. Through censorship and fighting for your right to be able to even speak. You know, because if they can just remove you from the internet, they've essentially removed you from everything. Like if you have no community you can build up and then they remove your internet access and the people you can talk to there, you're basically ostracized. You know?
Well, not only that, with the way banking and the financial system is moving, once you lose access to the internet, you lose access to your financials.
Oh yeah, Google account. You can't go into your Google account. Oh, I guess you can't use your cards that are connected to this account. We've heard you say racist statements and transphobic statements on this account. Therefore, now you can't use our bank to spend money. And then they're trying to make it a cashless society, right? So if you have no access to your cards anymore and they won't take physical cash, what do? Like, that's what they're trying to do. Like, you know. You know, a social credit core system, basically like China, like having people rated on how well they are in society based on the standards that those in power have created. That's why letting them take more and more from you on the internet is very dangerous. letting them censor you, letting like YouTube removing the dislike button. As simple as that is still taking something away from people.
Yeah.
And to show, because most of it is because of like YouTube Rewind and all these other people that do, and companies that do retarded shit online, and the whole community is like, nah, fuck that, and they just downvote it, and people see that, like how many dislikes something has, and that does have a great effect on the actual company, which is why they want it removed. And allowing things like that to happen is kind of the downfall of this. Like we should be kicking up as much of a fuss as we possibly can when they do the stuff like this. And I've seen so many YouTubers and people like express their dislike, funny enough, of the removal of dislike button, but that means nothing. They're not changing it. They've learned like, oh, if we just ignore people and just continue on, they're still going to use the service.
Yeah.
So what if we remove the dislike button? So what if everyone dislikes it? If we just ignore them for about a year, they'll stop talking about it.
Mm. So, chat, I think that we should make a meme of don't forget what they took from you with a picture of my YouTube channel in the background.
Yeah, things like that.
But
like,
yeah, I
actually kick up a fuss all the time.
I agree, Di, that they are relying on people just getting on and using it because, you didn't say this, but I think this is what you mean, because it's such a ubiquitous environment, a ubiquitous platform. It's not a platform at all. YouTube is definitely a publisher at this point. But that is why I have also made statements that though I am still using it, we should definitely be using other platforms as well.
Well, not even that. No, it's not even just that. It's kind of like this is the nature of the internet where stuff happens, right? Like we could see massive things happen in news, like, NASA like released the UFO sightings or whatever, and people talked about it for a week, or they talk about something for a week, and they quickly forget. Like people move on, especially on the internet, very quickly. And I think with the dislike button as an example, like people are going to be expressing their dislike for a while, but I think that will just taper down as it goes along, and then they expect that to happen. So as long as they just ignore it for a good amount of time, and they'll see that people are still using the service and not kicking up enough of a fuss, they're just going to keep doing shit like that. They'll just keep doing stuff you dislike until you actually just stop using it. And even then, if not enough people stop using it, they're not going to change. Like they're still making enough money. This is the problem with like basically a monopoly, because YouTube and stuff like that is a monopoly when it comes to platforms online, at least with how big they're. Like, can you think of another, besides Twitch, which is a streaming platform, can you think of something else that is as big as YouTube?
Indeed not. If there was, I would try using that as well, but I don't doubt that if it was that big, it would also be censored.
Well, that's the problem. It's like anyone now trying to create another platform that can rival YouTube immediately gets like lawsuits thrown at them and all sorts of other stuff where the development of the site is just destroyed before it can even begin, right? And that's because they want that to happen. Like it's a monopoly. They don't want anything else coming up and taking their light away,
Indeed. And
pretty much. Go ahead. Oh, no. Like what we have to do if you want to build your own platform, you have to deal with like domain providers and all that, which have already started based off a UN request have just removed access to accounts.
Yeah.
So you can go through and try to build your own, but if you start to threaten Twitch and YouTube, then they can just pull some strings to just have your domain revoked.
And then you'll have to go through either Russia or China to host your services, or like someplace else that won't listen to that kind of thing. And then you'd be relying on those, and then it'll just take a drop of the hat where they know people can only stream over here because they're not complying, so then they'll ask other things of you, and it's just a mess. They have everything put in place to make it as hard as possible for people to create a platform that could rival them.
Yes, it does line up with. Go on.
Oh, sorry, God. No, I was just going to say, of course they want that to happen, is because they have great control over YouTube right now. Like they're the advertisers, everything like that, removing the dislike button and things like that. Well, it's whatever, it's removing a dislike button, but it shows just how much pull that those in the companies and everything like that have in what actually happens on the site.
Yeah.
You know, like while the users and people creating don't want this to happen, they're just ignoring that. Like they're just going to go with what the advertisers want. So they're basically being controlled quite easily.
Yeah.
You know.
And also controlled
why would they?
By what the media will say, the threat of that.
Exactly. Oh yeah, like anything COVID related, you know, if you go against the narrative, they'll just remove your video. You know.
Actually, that's worth noting that we appear to now be living in a society that is far too much ruled by reputation, which is actually something that, at least as Picard said, is how the Star Trek system worked. And I realized recently that, no, our current society, and has been for a while, is indeed, people do seek reputation. People do seek position in society. It's just that money is the metric we use to measure it. Sorry for that little tangent, but yeah, currently, reputation is too much the issue, because influence is so much more valuable than it was so recently. And a bunch of old edifices of that recent time have been adopted by the very wealthy in order to adapt to this new time where reputation is so important.
Well, there's just also like, you can kick up a fuss on the internet, yeah? But like, if they just ignore you, what can you do?
You don't have the money and the power of the people that really control them.
Yeah, and people like convenience. That's again another issue we have, why people dislike how Netflix like does things and everything like that. But the way YouTube is, if you dislike how they're handling it, you can't just stop watching a series that's come out, right? Because that's not kind of how it works in a similar way. Like they'll still get people using it for convenience. Like people will be angry for a time, but then they're like, oh, well, where else am I going to go? And then they'll go back to YouTube and they'll still get money. You know, it doesn't matter if you boycott a certain YouTube channel, all they're doing is harming the actual YouTuber making it, not the platform. With Netflix, it's a bit like, as long as you don't support Netflix at all, like you can easily find other platforms, Prime, whatever, to support. It's not exactly a monopoly, it's big, but there are other options. I think YouTube's very interesting. With the only other option is Twitch, and Twitch is different. It streams, and it's not
Twitch
videos delete themselves. Like it's not an archived system. It's very different.
And in some ways, Twitch is more censorious than YouTube is.
Yeah. That is true. Like it's just, it has such a big monopoly, and they know that. That's why they can do things like that, and then basically be like, what are you going to do? Go somewhere else? Going to stop watching YouTube? Okay, you'll get bored eventually, and people do. They get bored and they'll go back. And that's what people do over and over. And that's why they'll never stop, like, because they can just take away shit. And what can you do? You can bitch about it, but you'll forget. People get bored.
Well,
I don't really know how to fix that.
At least in this community, there probably are a lot more people who are willing to go the extra mile for something important.
Right. I'm just talking about in general, normal people. Like in here, it's a bit different, but that's, even this amount isn't going to be enough to change anything.
It does, though, further, as you were saying, that a lot of people are in current day want convenience. As to what I was saying before for the culture wars, how we want to keep it relatively cold as long as possible, is because the left constantly wants to heat it up. Things will become very inconvenient for a lot of people that don't really know much about the current culture war, and then therefore just want it to end because they want their convenience back.
People need to be aware of why they're fighting, and that takes time.
Well, another thing of like with this whole COVID nonsense, and one of the main reasons I think that people are allowing this to go on as much as they could, especially with like not being allowed in shops or whatever, is they're not too threatened because they can always just get it delivered to the house now too. Like things like that wouldn't be too common before, where like anything you need now, go on Amazon, get it delivered to the house. You don't have to go into town or go to your local shops to get things as you normally would. Like even if you're barred from going somewhere, or you don't have a vaccine, or you don't want to wear a mask, you can just get it delivered to the house, right? You can just stay in your home. And that's what a lot of people are doing, especially as well with, taking people out of the workforce and having them work at home. You see a lot of people now like the GPs, for instance, not wanting to go back to work because they can just, go on Zoom and talk to their patients through that. You know,
Mm.
there's a lot of that going on. It's all about convenience. If people aren't starving, they still have the food in their bellies. They're not really going to want to revolt. You know?
That's probably what it'll take to get to the point of if it is going to have to come to violence, then it probably will take the point that people are not able to support themselves.
Oh, that's always what it takes. Like the moment people aren't being fed is when they'll actually do something.
And
that's one of the basic needs.
Yes, all of this really lines up with my recently sort of refined conception that the pattern we're seeing is of a wealthy class who is trying to significantly reduce social mobility and the freedom of the market, thus competition. Essentially, all the things that would allow the already wealthy and powerful to remain that way. They are using various powers and various strategies adopted from socialist regimes and from propaganda techniques, from subversion, and China probably also throwing in their hat into the ring as well, doing the same thing for different reasons. And this is, I had another point there. This is what you'd expect to see as a result. However, what will happen there is that as much as it will be horrible for everyone living through it, as I expect it will be for us if it gets this far, the result of that is that the market will become too slow, too ineffectual, and even though there may be a period of years or possibly even decades of a shitty society, maybe even a tyrannical dystopian society, it won't actually last. Eventually, there won't be enough work being done or enough good faith interactions being done to support a society of this size. And we will either start losing millions of people by one means or another. If they can depopulate, by the way, without anyone blaming the government, then that could be their way out of this. But either we start losing millions of people to starvation, at which point there will be probably revolts, although it depends how bad the infrastructure for control is by then. But at some point there would be with that.
Take away people's toilet paper as well seems to be a good way to get them to revolt, I've noticed. Not just food.
But I
take away the toilet paper. Because we've seen, funny enough, in the whole COVID nonsense, the only few times people got really uppity was when the toilet paper shortage happened. Which is really retarded when you think about it.
You're taking away their convenience.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, if you had a bunch of, let's say, Amazon workers go on strike, or lorry drivers or whatever we've seen in a lot of places, like refusing to deliver food and bring the convenience to people, I think you'd probably see a lot of change happening.
Yeah, quite possibly.
But they're not going to do that. They're trying to automate that to stop that from happening. You know, automate the cars. Like, all they have to do is get machines to load up the trucks to drive to their destinations on their own. That way they don't have to worry about people revolting. But they haven't gotten there yet.
Well, I am seeing more and more signs of the economic system slowing down, the market slowing down. And this is, again, I think this would be the downfall, ultimately, if nothing else, the downfall of any dystopian socialist-style system, one that tries to slow the market, is that the market would just be too useless to produce enough food to support society. Now, as I say, the only way to get around that would be depopulation that does not look like you're doing it as the government, which, of course, if they get enough control in their current state, I'm sure that they have many ideas of how to achieve that. If that's the case, that could genuinely be the end of civilization. That could be like, we'll reset the entire world to a period 500 years in the past or something like that, like Renaissance level. But if they don't manage to take it that far, then it will be at the point that the society can no longer afford to feed itself, that there will be revolts, and we will only have to go back 50 years instead of 500.
It's interesting because they seem to be, like, with this whole green energy and like green movement that they're doing, they're like intentionally reducing the food. Like, it's not that we're having a shortage of too many people, it's that they're intentionally making it harder for farmers and people to provide the food to people as well. That seems to be happening in a lot of areas for some reason, which you would think would, unless they're just trying to minimize it enough to keep people right on the cusp and edge. Like, just give them enough to survive and not enough to revolt, you know?
That is what you would do if you wanted people to be constantly under stress, constantly seeking for someone to fix their problems for them, constantly seeking to give power to someone who will fix their problems for them.
Yeah, intentionally,
Willing to
like
run
they'll
into the arms of the nearest authority.
Yeah, they'll intentionally make a problem and then give you the solution. It's what they've always done, especially in like the pharmacy and a lot of the pharmaceutical places. It's like, oh, you have this problem. Hey, here's this medicine. Oh, this medicine's giving you another problem. We have a solution for that. You know, like that's just a constant thing. They create a problem and give you the solution.
Yeah.
I mean, you pretty much have just described the Democrats' public policy for what, the past 100 years?
Yeah, but it's worked though. It's working. That's the problem.
I know.
That's why they're doing it. They're going to keep doing it because it seems to be the easiest way to control people. You know, it's been working this whole time.
Yeah. Let's move on to the next thing. We only have one more meme, I think, before we get into okay, maybe a couple more, but not many. So we've got some real stories soon, but we're still doing memes. So here is one. Don't make me tap the sign, says the Simpsons bus driver, and the sign says, "Those who cannot conceive of friendship as a substantive love, but only as a disguise or elaboration of eros, betray the fact that they have never had a friend." What do you think of that? You two.
So let me read that again.
It's essentially people that look at genuine friendship and think it must be sexual or romantic. The accusation is that they have never had a friend.
I mean, I think that's ridiculous. Like, of course you can have friendships without it being sexual.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably
that's
what
what
the
saying.
mindset right now for most feminists as to why they see most relationships that way.
I'm not sure exactly why this would happen on an evolutionary, like, mechanical level, but I have noticed it. Yes.
They're always pushing as well the whole like staying with one partner, is just why do that when you can just sleep around with multiple, and you can be happy doing this, doing that,
blending
it's
all
very
the borders
strange.
together into each other so as to despecialize everything away from what works evolutionarily.
Yeah, and it's so funny as well because like a lot of those people that push for that, like it never works out, and when you point that out to them, it's like, well, it doesn't work out for you either. It's like, yeah, but you lot seem the most broken in the whole scheme of things, like the most unstable, the most unhappy. And then you try and explain like maybe your way of life and sleeping with multiple people and not loving someone is probably one of the main reasons you're having this problem.
Yeah.
And they just refuse to believe that. Like they're trying to rebel against the whole like, oh, the family dynamic, right? That's what this all is about. Like having two parents and a kid, or having a family, having a child, like that. No. You should just go around sleeping with whoever, get your tubes tied, get everything removed, sleep around with whoever you want. But in the day and age with this whole pandemic issue and like how you shouldn't be going and talking to other people, and how you shouldn't be mixing, that kind of thing, you would think wouldn't be aligning with them, but instead it's just like, oh, if they're vaccinated, it's fine. You can go sleep around with people if they're vaccinated, or you create that class system. And it's just like layers upon layers of like retarded nonsense that seems to just continue to get worse. And mental health is like, you see all these people with their mental health getting worse, or like women shaving half their head, piercings, all this, and then being suicidal and on antidepressants, relying on the psychiatrist or whatever to give them painkillers. So of course the pharmacy loves that. Pharmaceutical companies love that because again, more people are relying on them to provide them with the necessary drugs to push onwards. And then they can continue with their degeneracy behavior and still be unhappy and still take more meds. It's just a cycle that's never ending. and you try and tell them that maybe it's their way of life, maybe it's how you've lived. Maybe you shouldn't go around sleeping with other people. Maybe you should like focus on like developing a family and a nice stable relationships. And they just completely reject that because that's how people lived before. And that's what, and they were trying to push against that. This is the new revolution. This is the new way of life. This is how we should go. It's like, no, it's obviously not working, but they won't listen to that, right? Because they're fighting against the system in their eyes. Which is kind of funny.
Speaking of all that, Di, as a brief aside, I have added a new mechanic to my RP system, which I think you'll like. You were always talking about you wanted the prude trait.
Yeah.
There is now a dedicated system for just that kind of thing.
You specifically put it in just because I wanted the prude. To be fair, it would be a funny thing.
Yours is one of the examples I give in the rule set.
That's funny. I'll have to look in. I'll have to read about that then.
So I will only talk about this briefly, chat. We'll move on to other stories in a minute, and we'll talk about this more after the stream as well. I do want to talk to you about the way this is going to be set up when you have some time, Di. But just quickly, I will go into the thing. Yes, I forgot what I was going to say. There is, there is a thing that will allow you to mechanically have that, and you can get benefits, narrative style benefits for matching the quirks, they're going to be called. And prude would be one of them.
That would be funny. That would be funny. I'm glad. Because I really did want more ways of you. Because I think if you're rewatching the old one, you could tell them, like, I have the prude trait. Is there anything I can do?
Yeah. Yeah.
So this should be fun.
Well, now, yes, there will be. Reading through the season 1 rule set again, it's remarkable how under-detailed it was compared to the current one, how little I accounted for. I did a rule set review in Cabal recently, and I noticed that you and Trig weren't there, which is probably fine, because it means that I'll get to see how new players approach it, rather than people that are already familiar with the rule set. But yeah, it's going quite well. Gisova says, is there an anti-miscegenation trait? The traits have defined mechanical effects and also have a buy value or a value that you get for buying them if they have a detrimental effect. So what you'd be looking for is a quirk, which is more of a character trait, which is just a name. It doesn't have any mechanical effects. It's just a name. But if you match what that means, then you get benefits that are story related. I'm having a currency called attunement, which you get attunement if you match your quirk, so you do something else that matches the narrative setting, for example, and you lose attunement if you do something that is incongruous with your character traits and not believable. And then there are going to be benefits of having attunement, for example, random, I've written benevolently enjoyable events if you have plus attunement, and if you have minus, random pressuring events. So I was thinking of ways that I could implement this based on Series 1, and I was thinking that at some point, Di, if you had negative attunement, I could have Theresa May walk to your quarters and say, now before you say anything, I've got a dead man switch on a report to Starfleet about what I saw. Now let's talk.
No, I just removed them.
You got to have an instant reaction. Do you want to shoot?
Yeah, shoot. You have a dead man switch? Are you going to be able to push that, or am I going to shoot you first? Let's see.
I just know what a dead man switch is, everyone.
Probably not. Yeah, no. I don't watch this show.
No, it's not a Star Trek concept.
Okay.
It's a dead man switch is one where if they stop pressing it, the thing happens.
Well, she's been a pain in my ass, this whole time.
Yeah. But still, the threat might be pretty worth considering. Either way, I think we can do a lot with that.
We'll see.
To give you an idea of the state of the project, the base rule set is very nearly finished. Just a couple more days.
So if she dies accidentally for some retarded shit, it's just going to send?
Yeah, exactly.
So what the fuck? Like, if she's just incompetent, then what am I going to do?
Suffer. But anyway, you basically at that point you have to keep her alive. So yes, the base rule set's very nearly done. After that, I'm going to build a small expansion to that rule set specifically for the Star Trek setting. Then I'm going to start work on the actual RP storyline and various stuff itself, and also work on various technology to make playing it more easy. Then we can start the campaign. So with all that, if I put my mind to it, then we might be able to start the campaign in January.
Okay. This should be fun. Hopefully I'll have a proper mic by then.
Yes, that would be good. And hopefully I will have decided on the players that we want as well.
Yeah.
That's complicated. I did have a system. I wonder what you think of this, Di. Just the last thing I'll say before I go, because I really do want opinions on this. I created a system called the stand-ins system, where people can get a large attunement reward on the order of 30 at the minimum, but much more possibly, which is like 3 very pleasant RP events for free, random events, for naming a stand-in player to play as their character if they can't make it to a session.
Okay. So like if you just you could just pick someone that's interested in Cabal to stand in and see. So like whatever decision that they make with your character is always going to be your character, so they have to at least know how to play, or will they be standing in with the random character?
No, they'd be standing in as your character. So you would have to. So it may give you a bunch of benefits as well, because it may give you someone to actually discuss your actions with, discuss your plans with, and have an actual reason to do that.
You think I had plans?
No, I know. But at least discuss your principles, discuss your attitude.
Yeah.
Although, of course, you're playing yourself, Di, with the freedom that it's a fantasy universe.
Really. Not really. Just more of a bloodthirsty version.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure that there's a difference somewhere.
I'd have to get somebody who's like, it wouldn't be that hard. I'm just going to be like, oh, you have a situation where you have to attack someone, you always attack. That's it. That's how you play my character. Well done.
I'm curious what people think of that system. Verdant earlier gave some comments on it. I'm not sure I really understood the full depth of it. I think I need to talk to him in more detail. But what do people think of that? But let's move on for now. We'll get onto the actual story soon. There's just a couple more memes first.
More memes.
So here's this, right? This is the...
Oh, God.
Yeah. So this is the kind of thing that will be in the history books as... this is
in the history books.
The short road towards the dystopia starting up properly. If there are books in the future, if there is a future at all, and if it is recognized that we are living currently in the run-up to a dystopia. Of course, in a sense, it is dystopia, but a run-up to a classic full Orwellian dystopia, a la 1984, which many of the aspects of are in place already. So this is from the institution housing the leader of the quote-unquote free world. They say, we are intent on not letting Omicron disrupt work and school for the vaccinated. You've done the right thing and we will get through this. For the unvaccinated, you're looking at a winter of severe illness and death for yourselves, your families, and the hospitals you may soon overwhelm.
Now imagine the Trump White House sending this out.
It's just crazy.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
This is domestic psychological abuse 101, essentially.
It's just full on like them versus us mentality. Like just again, it's and they're not going to say anything about this either. Even if people kick up a fuss, I bet they won't say shit. They'll probably double down on it.
Yeah. The Twitter user that sent this, his commentary was, we're in the executive branch using genocidal language against the outgroup stage of the biomedical security state. And I'll have to agree with his analysis.
What was that thing, the whole genocide list, tier list thing, and where people were saying, oh, we're now on like stage 6 or 7 out of 10.
I saw that.
Literal killings.
Yeah, we looked at that on stream, and it wasn't a linear path where you go down each one in order in terms of what's happened in our history. Some of the things on there were barely happening, but some of them were really quite significantly happening. Yes. It's much further than it ever should have got, obviously.
We basically are starting with the unvaccinated camps in in many places, Australia being the kind of the prominent one that most people know of.
Yeah.
And them trying to escape and literally being hunted down, to soon enough they're just going to be killed, and we're going to have a lot of mysterious deaths happening first in the unvaccinated camps.
And it'll be blamed on the fact that they are unvaccinated and died of COVID. I don't doubt it.
Yeah. If you die in a COVID camp, it's going to be of COVID, not the fact that they shot you in the head. Guarantee.
Yeah.
It's a perfect excuse for why people would be dying in a camp. Oh, they had the plague. The plague killed them.
Yeah. So, Di, I don't know if I told you this yet, but I have a story that you can get very sufficiently outraged about, which I know you'll like.
Oh, no.
So I recently met
outraged.
a femoid. I didn't meet her in person. It was on a call. She had very nice breasts, but when we had a conversation, she was clearly quite arrogantly orthodox in her opinions. She was very, very bad at discussing them as well. And it got to the point that she was shaming me for not being vaccinated. And I said, there are concentration camps across Europe and in Australia for the unvaccinated. You know what she said?
What?
Good.
I'm not surprised. I am not surprised, That's the types of people you're dealing with. They have no empathy. They are literally Nazi Germany time. They would have happily been shooting the Jews, right? Even though they would vehemently disagree if you said that to their face in this day and age.
Oh, I did say that. And she found a way to justify it. She found a way to explain why the concentration camps today are either not different from, or the ones back then were fine as well. Like, she was clawing at reasons why it was okay.
Right.
And,
That's
the conversation.
You know the main one. Hold on. You know the main reason I've heard from many that justify it to themselves is that at least the people in this day and age, they're causing harm to those around them by spreading a plague. So therefore, putting them in a concentration camp or just completely ridding them is completely different than the Jews. Okay. The Jews weren't like pushing a plague, right? The Jews weren't causing issues of everyone around them. But during that time, Nazi Germany would say otherwise, which is what they were saying.
The disgust reflex was used against undesirables in Nazi Germany, just as it's being used now.
Yeah,
exactly the same method.
But back in that day, it's like, they're destroying your businesses. They're taking this. They're destroying the normal folks. All this, that, and the third.
Yep.
Same shit, different day.
Yep. Different paint, same shit, as you say.
I'm not surprised. But fucking, this is why you fucking femoids, man. That's why you shouldn't.
And you like this as well.
Concentration camp.
Earlier in the conversation, she was shaming me for my cruel support of the meat industry.
Oh, she's a vegan too, is she? Oh.
Well, so what she said
a shock.
In her bio, she said, I don't like discussing it. Please don't discuss it. Then she brought it up in the call and then blamed me for responding and discussing it with her.
This is the type of girl, that if you met in person, she would say you raped her and try and get you arrested just because you offended her for something. Like you had this let's say you had this conversation and topic in person. She would leave and then just call the cops and say you raped her just because she disliked that you put her in her place with stuff you were saying.
Possibly.
Like that's the type.
Possibly, yeah.
That is the type.
I think I dodged a bullet in terms of possibly it going further, and it was probably good that we had the high intensity aspect of the conversation then, because it meant that I didn't have to sacrifice anything to get to the point of realizing how awful she was. And maybe that is a blessing of the time. It allows you to realize who is severely unworth your time much sooner than you would have done at a different time.
that crazy behavior, like just from that conversation you described, like she would anything happened in the relationship, she would say you beat her, you did this, you did that. Like it's that's the same type that does that shit always.
Probably. Shame.
Just-
She
just from
did
her
have nice
thing.
tits though, so that part's a shame.
But not nice just means nothing.
I know. It's a bonus though.
Yeah, because she's so retarded. Like the evolutionary standards have to give her something. It's like that fucking that scientist thing. They were like, oh, women with big tits have an evolutionary standpoint to compete with women that have brains or some shit. Like the only way that they can compete is that their bodies have given them bigger tits. Was one of the ways they described it in the study, quote unquote study. But I just find it hilarious. But it shows you, like, big tits, might be crazy. Might be dealing with crazy. But I think most women are just crazy, actually. You'll find either flat-chested, big tits, whatever. Many of them will have that same way of thinking.
So where are you,
Most
Di?
is an understatement.
Where are you, Di? Even though you have your extremities, you are not crazy overall on that same scale.
Are you asking the size of my tits? Like, what is this?
Actually, no, but since apparently you're completely willing to talk about your tits, I didn't bring them up.
Right. Just like you didn't bring up the meat industry, I bet.
Why do you have to sexualize everything, Di? Have you ever had a friend?
Oh, Christ. Wow, how rude of you.
Don't worry, Di, I'll be your friend.
Imagine being friends with Ursula, guys.
Couldn't be me.
who would be friends with Ursula, guys?
Someone's going to take one for the team. Otherwise, I'll just keep pestering people.
I'll
with my
take one for
opinions.
the team.
I know you will, Zane.
I bet you would. I fucking bet you would.
Are you basing that comment on his voice, Di?
On a lot of things. Is this the one that did the skirt? Is this
You
the
mean
one?
the skirt?
The skirts. Is this the one? I can't get. It's the other one or this one. They're
Zane,
the same person.
Would you like us to move on to the next story?
Yes, please.
Very well. Well, that sucks for you. No, I will. So this one doesn't really need context. It's something from Final Fantasy, but I just thought it was funny. The notion here, the statement is, the word daddy has become so sexualized that my kids are going to have to call me bruh or some shit.
Yeah, the sad reality is that it is, because whenever I hear daddy now, I'm just like, I get like a weird fucking queasy feeling whenever I hear someone say it. Even in an innocent way, it's ruined. They've ruined everything.
Would it cause you to actually throw up if Zane right now called me daddy?
Yes, probably.
It's worth it, Zane.
No.
Don't do it. Don't give in to peer pressure. It's the worst.
Di did it once and she's regretted it ever since.
Dude, it's a fucking nightmare fuel, is what it is.
The far as I will go is Wizard Chan, and that's it.
And
that's
Di,
only
you should call
because
me
it's
that.
an internal joke from a previous stream.
Oh. Christ.
So,
we'll move on. Let's move on, please.
I think we shall. Di, are you now competing with Vil in that department?
Stop competing.
Here's a great point, right? Kirsten Dunst says pay gap between her and Spider-Man co-star Tobey Maguire was extreme. To which Tobey Maguire responds, I missed the part where the movie is called Mary Jane. Speaking of which, that's what you got for the Coob noise. Anyway. Don't know why you're laughing, Zane. We gleefully skipped over the skirt stuff. We can go back into that if you like.
No, it's okay, it's okay.
You see, I don't let anyone be a guest on my show unless I have sufficient dirt on them, chat. I'm now thinking that maybe that's actually true. Anyway. Let's see what else we have. So, okay, this was one that kind of surprised me quite a lot, actually, and I think you might like this one. Not because it's good, just because it's a kind of a meme. Fentanyl overdoses become leading cause of death in 18 to 45-year-olds. There's a lot to go into here, isn't there?
Okay, yeah. First of all, how did they take the statistics? That's always
Second
the
of
first thing
all,
you should ask. Who were the people in these statistics that they checked exactly?
I
and
will
also,
say,
were there underlying conditions?
This article
what
is from the Epoch Times, who I have found to be good. So if there is significant bias in the study, it's unlikely to be coming from them. But what they say is, what's the source? According to an analysis of CDC data by non-profit group Families Against Fentanyl, whose website looks like this, with my darkening filter.
Families Against wait, what was that?
Families Against Fentanyl.
That's funny. I mean, it's just like any fucking drug. Like, there's so many opiates out there that have issues. I think the more you should be looking into is the doctors like frivolously prescribing fentanyl to people.
There is that, yes.
And like how well it depends on if they're getting it, because what it'll be is like they'll either be getting it off the streets or from the pharmacy, and most often it's the pharmacy.
There's there are two facts that really sort of paint the picture here, right? I'm sure that all of you know these facts, but just in case anyone doesn't. Fact one, almost all the fentanyl in the US comes from China. At least the illegal stuff. I'm not sure about the legal stuff. At least the illegal stuff does. Fact two, they are sent to Mexico and brought over the border illegally and then distributed. Those two facts say quite a lot about our ideology and how it's correct. That China bad and that borders on the southern US border being open is a really fucking bad idea. China would want there to be an opioid crisis in the US if they could choose. And they would also want borders to be open to facilitate that more easily if they could choose, and for other reasons too. And big corporations in the US, particularly pharmaceutical ones and those in their pocket, would also want that because fentanyl is worth selling. I'm not sure the pharmaceutical companies are making money from that directly, but
it's like I said, they get
also
you
a medical
addicted to
opioid
drugs.
crisis.
Yeah, no, they get you addicted to shit, and then you have to keep buying it.
Also, the open borders gives a great excuse to manipulate the labor market. So it all works to their interest. Just create a bunch of problems with obviously bad policies, then sell the solution, even though the solution isn't actually a solution.
That's why I suppose they got a bunch of people addicted to these, right? And then they started seeing a lot of problems happening, which a lot of the pharmaceutical companies like, oh, let's maybe give them stuff like antidepressants and other drugs that won't cause too much of an issue, as opposed to like opioid epidemics that were happening. Because you'd see people that would get addicted, and then the pharmacy or doctors would get involved and then just, wean them down and get them off it. But that doesn't get rid of the addiction problem. So what ends up happening is you have these people addicted to fentanyl and opiates, and they get that taken from them, and then they just go on the street and get heroin.
Yeah. And
then that's always what happens. They just go on the street for it then, when you're not actually dealing with the addiction problem. But it's not really, the whole point is that the doctors themselves are usually the cause, where like somebody would break a bone, right, and they're put on these medicine, or they're in a severe car crash and they're on these things in hospital. And you have to monitor these people heavily, and even then, just a few times of giving them these drugs, they can get severely addicted. And unless they're handled properly, that addiction will never go. And many doctors don't have the time to be looking after each individual patient for that to happen, so people just get addicted. And then when they've caused too much problem, they get removed. Or like when social services are involved, if there's kids involved, then do they get involved and remove the drugs from the parents or people. But then they're still addicted, so they go to the street and things get worse, and then they overdose or whatever. Like it's they're not. It's not actually dealing with the issue. Like banning fentanyl or banning anything like that isn't going to get rid of the addiction problem that they have.
Indeed. The
Banning
issue
things
of
never work.
the issue of people having addictions like that is not one that you can solve with a single policy. No.
No. Well, banning things never fixes any of the problems. When you have the underworld, people will just like with cigarettes and everything that they're trying to do here. What was it? Making it so if you're born after 2008, you'll never be able to buy cigarettes is something that they're doing. Right. I can't remember where, but it was brought in, right? So every year it would go up. So the people born after that point will never ever be able to buy cigarettes.
Interesting.
But those in the underworld love that idea, right? Because first of all, if you're born after or before 2008, you can still go in and buy them. So what is to stop people going in, buying in bulk, and then just selling it on the street?
Yeah.
And then they'll just have more money on the street that way, or just making it themselves. It's the same with weed. Everything was banned in weed. Does that stop people smoking it? Like, I just think banning any and all that kind of shit. It was in New Zealand. That's what it was. It was in New Zealand. Of course, it was fucking New Zealand. But it's just so retarded. It's not going to fix the issue here. You know, if people want to smoke, they're going to smoke. You know, you can ban it all you want. People are going to drink. They're going to drink. Look at America. You know, they tried to ban alcohol. How well did that go?
Indeed. Now, to clarify, I don't think Dai is saying that banning anything is wrong. But when it's a commodity that people want, especially when there's addiction associated with it, banning it is certainly not the last thing that you do, even if you do it at all. It will almost always lead to more problems than not banning it.
Though we can thank the femoids in America for the alcohol ban.
No, but this goes back to something as well that's been legal on the market for a very long time, right? Like with alcohol and let's say cigarettes, you suddenly try and ban that shit. It's just not going to work. Like people want to smoke, they're going to smoke. Oh, it's bad for their health. People make decisions that are bad for their health all the time. Like obesity is the biggest problem that we have to deal with in a lot of medical emergencies. Like you look at America, the obesity epidemic is a massive thing. You know, and they tried to do in the UK banning sugar, right? Like they put sugar tax, not banning it, but they put the sugar tax on all that shit. What did that do? Instead, they're using like some fucking substitute that is actually worse for you than sugar.
You know, I think it's called xylitol, sugar alcohol. I think that's correct.
Yeah, it was some syrup. They changed it to syrup, but it would ended up being a lot worse for you.
That shit, xylitol, I think it is very toxic to dogs. So if it was sugar, I don't doubt that there would be no problem at all. But now if he manages to get something while we're on a walk that, because of sugar taxes, has xylitol in it, or whatever it's called, he could actually die from that.
Yeah.
That's just one of the many issues.
Well, yeah, one of the many issues is like banning shit like that isn't fixing the problem. It's like, again, obesity. Are you going to start banning like fast food restaurants? Are you gonna start taxing obese people in the hospital as well? Like, because if you're unvaccinated, you have to pay extra if you go to hospital for COVID. But when you bring up, well, if people are fat, you know, they're also worsening their health and they're clogging up the system. So when they go to hospital, should they pay more? And suddenly that's a bit too fair. Well, that's the problem when you do these things. Like, where do you stop? It shouldn't be starting to begin with, you know, like. All of these things to fix everything ends up being far worse in and of itself. Like just creating an environment where stuff is legal but used correctly, and more systems in place for those that do get addicted to get help.
Yeah,
would be far more productive than simply banning something.
Yeah,
but no, you can't talk reason with people like that. They don't like to listen. You know, fixing the problem that costs that we want money. We want the problem to stay there. We want people to have issues so that they come to us to pay for a solution. You know.
Indeed.
Sorry.
If there's a freer market, then there's not as much benefit to creating artificial problems, because then it may give your competitor additional sales as well as you. or perhaps instead of you. It's only once you have monopolies that strategy becomes much more viable.
Because I heard a lot of people, like there was a few in here trying to argue about how like, oh, banning cigarettes is a good thing. I hate the smell. I hate this. I hate that. It's like, I understand. But at the end of the day, like, isn't this like, aren't we supposed to be free to make mistakes, free to indulge in stuff that are bad for you, right? Like there's many things that people pump into the air that is bad for you that you're breathing in, but we're not banning them. Like look at China. You're gonna biggest problem with the world and everything. What are you doing about them? You talk about your air pollution, they're the main cause, but no, you're gonna attack those smoking cigarettes. And banning it isn't going to fix that issue anyway. In fact, more teenagers, I think, are going to be encouraged to go and smoke it because it's going to be seen as a more of a cool thing because it's banned now.
Maybe, yeah.
That we've seen that happen like every time, always with the young people. Like you try and put a stop to something they're doing, they'll just go against it. Always.
I think the way of thinking of policy in that area of banning things and trying to, with the sugar tax as well, soft bans, is that much like with socialists, as I've said before, they don't account for the secondary results of their actions, only the primary. They can't look one step ahead. It's like trying to block a stream of water by putting your hand in it. The water's just going to go round your hand. It's just going to find a different way. The place that it didn't need to go before, it will just go. It will just route there instead. It will go for the simplest route. Seeing that people are using sugar and then putting a tax on it so they use it less will not make them use sugar or sugar-like things less. It will just make them use other things that are cheaper more than sugar.
Yeah.
Obvious.
Yeah, and those things end up being far worse for you. So the whole reason for the banning of sugar, because it's bad for you, is null and void, because the substitute that isn't banned that they put in it is actually making you sicker than normal sugar would.
The reason people were using sugar rather than the alternatives is probably because it was the best of the options. Putting the tax on sugar just means that they're having to use the worst option.
Yeah. Like it's so retarded. It's just so short-sighted.
Yeah.
And like I get so annoyed when I talk to people being like, well, I don't like the smell of cigarettes, I don't like this, I don't like that. And it's like, yeah, I don't like your existence, but I have to fucking deal with it. This is the world we live in. You know, not everything is going to be as you wish for it to be, you know.
If only someone would give you an instant reaction in real life.
But we live in a world where, guess what? Tobacco exists.
Yes.
You know, you fucking deal with it. People are going to smoke it. People are going to use it. We put like a lot of restrictions on it to begin with. You have to be a certain age. You have to be that. You know what happened? But then people still find a way to smoke it at a young age. People still find a way to smoke it in general. You take it away from the shelves. They put fucking like disgusting mutilated bodies on the packages of cigarettes. People don't care. They instead now get desensitized to the whole fucking idea of it. Like, even it's just retarded. Like, nobody's actually thinking what's going to happen when you do this. And we have so many instances of this happening, of restrictions, banning, people doing stuff in place over so many years, so many histories, and we still do the same thing over and over, and it does nothing. Like, I get more annoyed with it in here because I was having an argument with somebody about it in here, and they just didn't see how short-sighted they were actually like pushing for this ban. Like, yes, it's bad for you, but banning it isn't going to make it disappear. Like, I'm sorry. And I know it's like, oh, make it less, make it harder for people to get it, but it's actually not that hard to get illegal stuff, guys. Shocker. You might not realize it, but you know, it's actually not that difficult to get stuff that is illegal.
You might not like it, but this is what a legal performance looks like.
Your screen's going like black, by the way.
Yeah, I was switching desktops. Although I didn't know that turned the screen black. Thank you for telling me. There's one thing I can do about that, actually. I can do this. That should fix it. Anyway, let's read a bit of this article. Fentanyl-related drug overdoses in Twitter. That's good. That's good. Who made that? Added by Daddy Bill. Do not crime in the 1984 style. That's Good Cabal reference. Fentanyl-related drug overdoses in 2020 became the top killer in adults aged 18 to 45, overtaking suicide, vehicle accidents, and gun violence, according to an analysis of CDC control and prevention data by non-profit group Families Against Fentanyl. So that's quite profound that it's that much, that it's actually the highest. It's worse than suicide. I think if you did it just by mail, suicide would still be higher, but still. I only heard about fentanyl with the George Floyd case. I know that I'm probably not a great example, but it's not like it's something that's been with us for generations that is known as a big killer. It's fairly recent big killer, and yet it's now the biggest killer.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you'd be surprised probably nowadays how much fentanyl has been used in suicides as well. You know, either there's a lot of accidental overdoses, not me, but there's probably a lot of people out there as well that chug a bottle of fentanyl and hope to off themselves. Probably especially after the George Floyd thing too. There's probably more people that realize the drug can do that for you.
Yes.
You know, that's.
By the way, chat, have you noticed the multiplier? You could knock a significant portion of Ginger's health off right now, if you so wanted.
My God, Ginger is the top contributor. Come on, guys. Are you going to really leave the Ginger as the stream boss? Come on.
Mm-hmm.
He's been there for a while.
He's not even human. Come on, guys.
Wow.
You can do better than that.
I mean, he's a dwarf. Ours, it's tip.uzlu.net.
Come on, chat. You know I'll read out voice lines and the wizard some shekels.
Thank you, Zane. If at the end of the articles, which we're almost through there, we'll do this one and then probably, there are some others, but we might just do one more because we've been going for a long time. We'll do this one, then one more. After that, if chat has anything fun they want us to do, then we can do that. I mean, that'll be a nice bonus at the end. And I'm sure that we can find some incentives. I have the pitch shifters after all. I mean, chat, if you would like me to pitch shift the guests, as long as they're okay with it, then contribute and ask.
Oh, Christ.
I am going to change the multiplier system at some point so that it just increases gradually, say, by 1 for each day that there isn't a new stream boss. Maybe each day on which I stream, for which there isn't a new stream boss.
Or you can make people sound so annoying that people have to pay to get them back to normal.
That's true. Though they might just leave the stream instead.
Yeah, true.
But yeah, I'm going to make the multiplier not go down when someone sends one, and in fact go up when someone sends one because of like a hype train. That's the idea. So that people don't. Nice one, Ars. Thank you very much. So that people don't get discouraged from sending in small amounts when there's a multiplier, so they don't break the multiplier. Thank you, Ars, for the contribution. Di, do you want to read out the contributor's name?
Where do I see that?
On the screen share.
Oh, fuck you. I see what you're trying to do here. Zane, you do it.
You saw through my sly plan, did you?
Zane, you're willing to sell yourself. Go on, do it.
No.
So far, Zane is less willing to sell himself than you are, Di.
Lies.
Historically.
Lies.
Thank you, Vil. Vil says glad Yule. Have you talked to Vil, Di?
I've talked a bit to them, not too much, but we've had a conversation before. It seems very pleasant.
Chat, you've knocked down Ginger's health quite significantly. He's nearing defeat, and I've mentioned that I will give Ginge the full time of his stream boss before I implement the new stream boss system, which I haven't coded yet, but it won't take long. I don't imagine. Which will be based on days on which I stream. Will increase the multiplier by 1 until there's a new stream boss. I think that's how I'll do it. And then I'll also do, whenever there is a contribution, it increases by 1 for 10 minutes or something like that. So that people can band together all at once to take down the stream boss, even with small amounts. I think that's a much better system. Anyway, let's continue with the article. Speaking of cool code, we're now back to the shitty reality of drug overdoses being the leading cause of death. The substance is, fentanyl is a synthetic opioid that's 50 to 100 times more potent than morphine, highly addictive and deadly. Again, as Vil alluded to earlier, just do weed. Do not crime, but weed is just in all ways better. It's totally safe. It has similar pain relieving effects. The main issue is that you'll be buying more cookies.
Don't even get me started on weed, man.
Of course.
I
There
mean,
are-
look at the Girl Scouts. There was that one that set up a stand right in front of a pot shop, and I think they made in 30 minutes $200.
Yeah, that sounds about right. That's fucking hilarious.
Of course, as I might have been about to allude to, there are, of course, issues with anything that makes you less
Right.
prone to do productive activity. Of course,
No,
it may have no
That's not even what I was going to
physical
say.
effect. Okay, fair enough. But still,
that's
it
not
may
even what I
have
was
no
gonna say.
physical effects, but it can still affect your life like anything can. But yeah, go ahead.
Right, but when people talk about like the bad points of weed, right? They completely miss the fact that we have so many drugs that are allowed on the market, like fentanyl, for instance,
Yeah.
that is far fucking worse for you
Yeah.
than weed ever is, right? It's ridiculous to me why we would even continue to have this ban on pot and using the bin like, oh, people will get addicted, or I remember the British police. One things I saw as a reason for giving, because I don't know if I told you of this. When somebody's caught with pot in the UK, they're given a leaflet telling them how bad it is, right, for their first offense. And one of the things on the leaflet as a first offense, what would be really bad and why you shouldn't get into pot, is that if you smoke pot, you'll get addicted to nicotine. That's one of the reasons why you shouldn't have it. Right?
One,
Oh,
no,
yeah,
you won't.
yeah.
2, nicotine's legal.
No, that's where I was like, wow,
Yeah.
that's so retarded. Because what they're insinuating is like, if you're smoking pot, you're going to mix it with tobacco to make a spliff, and therefore by smoking that, you're going to then get addicted to nicotine.
Yeah.
So like they're blaming a completely different substance on being addicted to a completely different substance if you smoke pot. Like it's just so retarded. The whole concept and nonsense of it is, and especially because pot has been shown to have quite significant effects on those with seizures and a lot of brain issues and things like that, where it's actually a relatively good treatment. Funny enough, it's actually a good treatment for me and my brain issues.
Maybe
right?
the reason it's
And-
banned is because it solves too many fucking problems.
No, yeah, probably. Like, it's so annoying to me because I think I've told you before. I have severe migraine issues, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things that actually helps is weed, which is why I smoke it as often as I do, or try to when I can get my hands on it. But instead
Am I a
of
real
having
headache,
that as
Di?
an yes, instead of having that as an option or treatment, right? I get prescribed opiates instead, right?
Yeah.
Opiates, which are far fucking worse for you, have the worst side effects imaginable. You get severely addicted to them, and even when you want to come off them, you literally you have such an intense reaction. Like it's the worst. Like being on opiates is not a fun experience. And I'd take smoking pot any day than being put on any of those medications that are legal.
Yeah.
But
no
you
doubt.
can't. It's just so annoying. We're getting there slowly, obviously, over time. Like stuff is getting better. Like there's a lot of CBD stuff that's illegal now in many areas. But it's still just a retarded thing. People
So-
that talk about how bad it is have no idea what they're actually talking about.
Yeah. There is a new contribution. Oz says, donation depends on Di saying my name.
But he just donated.
Yes, I'm not sure what's going on there. Maybe he's threatening to send another one if you say his name.
Where is this? Oh no, that's
it's the same guy in
Ginger.
chat. ARS
Oh.
in his name.
Well, it depends how much money you send and how much that going into my pocket. Alright.
Those are good questions.
Wow, I've never even asked for anything from the donations.
Yeah, well, that's not my fault, bro. Oh, Christ.
Earlier when I said that Di is proven to be more willing to sell herself than Zayn, for some reason I did forget a certain event that occurred. And so, no, you're about the same.
Oh, wait, what? What was the event?
You already mentioned it earlier.
Oh, right. How could we forget?
Well, Di, I may be a major headache to you, but I did help to fund your acquisition of weed. So maybe it's offset, even though you did have to give Coom noise in return.
Yeah, right.
Ours says that's the second donation. Yes, it is. You sent 2 of, I assume, $50, converted to £37.31. Thank you very much for that, by the way, Ours. I greatly appreciate it. Still, it seems like you're... It sounds like from what you're saying that you're withholding donations until Dai says the thing, but you're sending donations to do so. Now, I wonder if you mean that you're going to send another one, which would be very generous, and I obviously cannot sufficiently hope to expect such a thing. But I just don't know.
He says no problem. He says no problem, but I'm just trying to help the server. How sweet.
Yeah. I appreciate it. Dai, you know what would help the server?
Right, what?
Well, if you did the thing and then graciously contributed your share to the server.
Fuck off. Listen, I have a family I need to buy presents for, okay? It is a very stressful time of year. It's also my birthday coming up. I should be getting free shit. What is this?
Maybe we'll give you a gift for your birthday, Dai.
Oh. That'd be nice. But nah, don't feel pressured. But it would be nice, isn't it? You know, just been 8 years of friendship. It would be nice to have a gift every now and then, but that's fine.
That's strange, Dai. I don't remember getting a gift for my birthday from you.
Yeah, I send some money every now and then.
Do you? Stimulations?
Oh, Christ.
Interesting. Okay.
Do I have family? Yes, I do.
Ours is saying, I'm of the opinion that if Dai says his name, donations will flood in.
Again, this peer pressure, man. You guys are such fucking. You're the worst.
Dai, the reason it works is because you're a good person, a communitarian. You like other people.
No, I don't. What is this?
That is true, but this is a server of people that don't like other people somehow continue to go back onto the server.
This is your home, Dai. You'll always be welcome in our loving arms.
You know what is, since it's the holidays. Look at that smile. Look at that fucking smile. He knows. Look at you. You're the worst. But since it's the holidays, I'll say his name just this once. All right. So thank you, Daddy Ayers, for the donations.
There you go. Thank you, Dai.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Vil?
It'll happen once a year.
Vil says, please play Cajun Night Before Christmas. I've never heard of it, but if you can give me a bit more information, I'll look into it. You don't have to send the information as a contribution. And Dai,
Revelini, I'm sorry, I saw it too late. He's like, don't give in, don't deny it.
Dai, perhaps Cabal will find it in our Scrooge-like black shriveled hearts to send you some medicinal money for your birthday or something like that.
That would be very sweet, but don't feel like you have to. But that would be very sweet.
We'll try to remember around the day, and maybe we can organize something.
It's very hard to remember. It's just New Year's Eve. Like you won't remember it, I'm sure.
Yes, it's not hard to remember because there's other stuff going on, but because there's other stuff going on, it might be harder to remember.
Yeah, no, it's the plight of my life, bro. it's interesting. It's one of the worst times to have a birthday, to be honest with you.
Ours has just sent another contribution and says, "You're an awesome sport, Dai."
Oh, thanks.
Thank you, Ours.
Oh.
All right, so what I'm hearing is that on New Year's Eve we're gonna be playing some Among Us to celebrate Dai's birthday.
I can get us to play Among Us again.
I think it probably would be fair, given that she did that, if I send Dai a little bit of weed money, which I will do, or money for whatever she wants, which I'll do after the show.
You know what? If I manage to get weed and then I come in on my birthday stoned, and it'd be like, guys, this is because of you. If I manage to do that, it'd be fun. We'll see, though. We'll see. Everyone's so generous for the holidays.
I'm sure that we can. I'm sure that we can find a way to repay your generosity as well.
Stoned Among Us.
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
Among Us has changed quite a bit since
It
last time.
has a good few updates.
Yeah. 8-Bit Picky has contributed and said, "Happy early birthday to Di. You're sending the money to me for Di. All this means is I'm going to have to send her more after the show. But, I mean,
Yay!
that's fine, I guess. Thank you, 8-Bit Picky, for the contribution.
Oh, guys, we'll definitely have to do something though. New Year's Eve around here, or Christmas time, because you were saying you wanted to do something for Christmas for people that didn't have.
Yeah, nothing specific. It'll just be a chill day in Cabal where
out,
I'll probably be here. I'll probably be attending like every normal day. So if anyone else doesn't have something to do on Christmas or just for part of the day, then Cabal will be here. And then near the beginning of the new year, maybe around the 3rd, we're going to do our Lord of the Rings marathon. And then sometime in January, I hope, possibly later than January, but hopefully in January, I'll be starting Wizards in Space. So a lot of cool stuff coming up in the near future. I got a lot of interest in the rule set, actually. A lot of people are saying that they want to write expansions to it, which is designed as part of the system to have expansions. And to use it in their own campaigns as well. Wes and Ginge, as well as Verdant as well, are all running campaigns in the server. And there was some interest from at least some of them that they might want to use that rule set instead. So it could become a pretty serious like golden age of RPs in Cabal. Could be pretty cool.
There'd be a lot of RPs going on, to be fair.
I think, Di, you might be a popular guest, a popular player, if that happens.
Oh, we'll see. We'll see. People might get annoyed with me. You never know.
That's a very, very generous sentiment there, Ars. Di, you probably should take him up on it.
I don't, I feel bad. Like, I also don't want to seem like I'm a whore.
And the fact, Di, that you feel bad about accepting nice things from other people is probably why you are worthy of receiving nice things from other people.
No, stop. What is this faggotry? Stop. I don't know. I always feel weird, right? Because it's the whole, you know what it is as well? It's the whole thing of being a femoid. And people expect, like, oh, look at this femoid getting free shit. Like, I don't want to seem ungrateful. I don't want people to seem like people giving stuff either. I don't want people to make fun of them for being like, oh, look at this simp. I
understand. It is worth noting that you have given a lot to the community. A lot of other people have too, but you've done it for a lot longer than most.
Yeah, no, I don't know. We'll see. Because I remember what somebody else offered as well to get a Christmas present, which I was really surprised with. Let me get the name. The recent, the couple, the married couple.
Yeah, Ezreal and not Lysana, that's the other one. Ezreal and Hannah, I think.
Yeah, they also offered to get stuff for Christmas for me, and I was there's very sweet people. There's a lot of very nice people in here.
An amazing amount of wholesomeness in the server, which is why it must be crushed in the cesspool spiral wars soon to arrive on the server, where one will be destroyed once and for all. Spiral will be destroyed once and for all. Anyway, I imagine Di will be taking up the spiral side of that wall.
I'm going to continue to be destroyer cesspool, not spiral.
God damn it, I'm surrounded by wholesome fags. Raji Ali says, Oozaloo, send me a DM of what art you want to have done for WIS if you still want it. Thank you, Raja. I can't tell you how much I am anticipating appreciating your input on Wizards in Space. Your art is shockingly good and will make a fantastic addition to the show. But I have no idea yet what I need. What we can do is, I know for sure that, and they seem to be fine with it as well. I know for sure that I want Trig and Di to be players. Other than that, everything else is up in the air. So if you are interested, and I am happy to pay you as well, go ahead and get started on Trig and Di. And of course, they probably would be willing to help give details of their character, and maybe even to give far more details than they were able to give for WIS 1, and thus much more customize their character. And because Let me just switch, by the way, because we're talking about general community stuff now. Thank you, Mr. M. I'll read that in a minute. Because it's an RP, because why not? And because you're such a great artist, let's go ahead and say that they can more significantly customize their Starfleet uniforms and general appearance for the art than we would necessarily play to mechanically. So you can have more freedom than just putting them in a regular Starfleet uniform. Canonically speaking, it'll be the Starfleet uniforms from Voyager.
I know you want Rogo on there so we can see the autism ensue between Rogo and Dai.
Well, I tell you what, this would be very much subject to Raj being willing to do this. But what we could do is maybe if you can do quick ones, Raj, that might work. We could have some sort of auditions where people could come forward with character concepts, and we just pick the best character concepts. And if Raj is up for it, he could make some quick artwork for each one to sort of bulk out the concepts before they bring them before the council to see if we approve.
I just want to see two trigger-happy people on screen.
Wig
That's
says,
going to be a nightmare.
Wig says, hoping this is tax deductible since Dai is handicapped and in a wheelchair. I don't know, where did that rumor come from, Dai?
It's been so long, I can't even remember who started it anymore.
I think I might be guilty for somewhat propagating it.
You and Coat are the worst of it.
But Coat's not in here, so I think this is me.
And then it's just gotten out of control. Like it's just spread.
Mr. M says, "Happy birthday, Miss Dai."
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
I can just hear him saying, I can just hear him saying, "Happy birthday, Mrs. Dai," and you say, "It's Miss, actually." And he says, "Oh, my."
God fucking Christ. Oh, gosh. Getting old now, man. Getting old.
I'm older than you, Dai. Shut the fuck up.
What? We're both getting older. It's the cycle of life, you know?
I see.
I'm
So it's
basically halfway through my life expectancy. So you know what I mean? I'm basically middle-aged.
Given you're disabled, I wouldn't be surprised if you're about 20 years past your life expectancy.
I mean, true.
Based outliving the odds. Surviving by pure hatred.
Yeah. Too angry to die.
Yeah.
Too angry to die.
I'm not leaving until I punish those responsible.
That's the best way to get to them, man. Somebody said Cabal got that wheelchair fetish covered, all right. Fucking hell. I'm so sick of people sending me that fucking dojin as well. That fucking like wheelchair dojin. Have you seen that?
Don't think so.
You have to. They've like spammed it in here so often.
Oh, you mean the one talking about how they're a dirty little vegetable?
Yes, that one. I didn't want to say it because it was they were gonna clip me.
By the way, you're welcome to clip Zane, everyone.
Yes, please.
What was it that you were afraid of them hearing you say, Dai?
There's a lot. There's a lot that have.
No, but specifically,
what was it? I don't know.
You don't know? Oh, that's interesting. You seem to know just now.
I don't know what you mean. I don't know what you mean. Aren't we supposed to be reviewing like news?
Well, we are 3.5 hours in. There is one more story that we should cover, which is just broadly the shit going on in the UK. Frankly, I'm tempted to actually just skip it because we've got pretty upbeat atmosphere right now, and that would be a shitty thing to end on. Perhaps, chat, I will save it for next time instead, and we will instead now just chat instead in the community while we wind down the stream a bit.
Bring in some retards if you really wanted to wind it down.
I mean, we've got you and Zane.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew. As soon as I said, I was like, he's just going to turn it around.
One day, Dai, you and I will interact, and I will act as a frank and reasonable human being rather than a caricature.
I love how when I first met you, that was like the one thing I said was like, why can't you be normal?
To be fair, right, we had company.
Yes, it was. Yeah, I mean, we did have a cop hovering over the shepherd. Understandable why we were a bit on edge.
At some point, Di, you and I will have to meet without your chaperone.
I know, yeah, no. So one of the days I hoped, like, what was it? Well, we were hoping.
I think we'll have to wait until after World War III now.
Yeah.
Wait, are
yeah,
you
that's
saying
gonna
that
be-
Di has like a crap? No, the
A wheeler.
parole officer is following her around pushing a wheelchair?
It was basically that. Though he was more scared of me than anything.
Yes, he was.
Well,
You are quite scary, Di.
dude, I got the British police shaking in their boots.
Well, to be fair, he wasn't exactly a fine, upstanding example of manhood.
I mean, touche, yeah.
Though
True.
he did make other men's manhood finally upstand, I hear.
Oh, Christ.
Well, Di, you and I both got out of relationships we weren't happy with.
Yeah, no, it was a rough one. It was a rough one. What can you
2020
do?
was an odd year, but I feel like, well, I guess that was also 2021 for you, wasn't it? But not entirely. But,
Yeah,
it
it was.
not great years, but honestly, right now, the beginning of 2021 for small scale stuff in and around the community is looking pretty good. Even though my YouTube account just got deleted, I'm honestly feeling like that's kind of liberating, because now I don't have to think, okay, I want to make content, but the organization of where to put it is so broken, because I've got this big subscriber count here, which I should use, but the channel is throttled. Definitely throttled, and it's not going to work uploading it there. So it was always this subconscious restriction as to what I could do. But now I feel like I can come at it again. I can regroup, reorganize into a format that works better without the worry of sunk cost of all those subscribers on the original channel.
Mm.
So I think I can spin it as a positive and make it work.
Yeah.
And as we
Gotta
have
keep this-
proven, I don't need the YouTube plebs, though they are nice to have.
Yeah.
What we've
YouTube
built
is a
here in
bit-
Cabal is the kind of thing that can survive a culture war. The YouTube audience, not necessarily. Right. I think I will save the depressing UK stories for later. I should stream again tomorrow. Sleep pattern's back in a place where I probably will.
Well, we should try having some more upbeat stuff since it's Christmas time.
Yeah, probably. There is important stuff, but maybe we should, for a few streams, try and have some more upbeat stuff. Maybe, indeed, we should, because what I'm thinking of doing with the YouTube, now that we're near the end of the show, I'll ramble a bit. What I'm thinking of doing is having a safe venue, safe channel, which on both of these will be created by someone else so that they're attached to someone else's fingerprint so that YouTube doesn't identify them as being me. I'll have a safe outlet where I upload non-political content, because there is some of that, and it might as well not be tainted by the political content for more than just the ideological censorship reasons. That will be where I upload Wizards in Space. That channel might be called Wizards in Space. I was also thinking of calling it Campfire at the End of the World, but that's a bit long. But we'll come up with something good. So that's probably going to happen. That's probably where Wizards in Space will be. And what I was about to say is that we could, in the next few days, or around Christmas, try and create content that will be appropriate for that channel, like positive community stuff. And then aside from that, I'll probably make ablative political YouTube channels that get deleted one by one, but there'll always be something available. So there'll be the safe and the dangerous channels on YouTube.
I still can't believe though, like they got rid of a lot of the people you were following, so you're basically not able to use your account at all.
Yeah.
It's the worst.
Honestly, the thing I miss most is the history, the record of what happened for the last 5 years.
Yeah. It's sad. But as many people said, it was kind of like inevitable, you know?
Yes. And besides, onwards and upwards. Let's not dwell on the past when there's so much opportunity.
Indeed.
Thank
Gotta be
you,
positive.
Oz. I've had a lot of people volunteering to create the channel for me. In fact, today, I didn't look into whether this has happened, but I mentioned the idea that people could volunteer to send me stream keys so that I could stream onto their channel, and we could have a big distributed streaming network where everyone hosts my streams separately. Now, any number of you may get strikes, but it's likely that there will be less of a detriment to you getting a strike because a lot of you probably don't have very many subscribers. You don't have an active channel, indeed. But I was thinking that essentially I'd franchise my content out for free. Now, we sort of trialed this where someone did send me their stream key. I'm not sure if they'd want to be revealed as to who it was, but I did activate it, and I'm not sure if it's streaming there today, but I haven't checked because he would have to go and click the go live button first. But that's the idea anyway. So we can also do that, aside from me having my own central ablative danger channels where I talk about politics as normal. We can also have everyone else in the community supply stream keys for their own channels that I will just relay my streams to as well. This is a plan, by the way, I had months ago. There will be ways around YouTube censorship. There will be ways to use their platform, because I don't view them as a genuine provider of a platform that I'm being unfair to at this point. I now view them as an ideological opponent who wants to see me gone. And so I will fight them. Rather than attempt to cooperate with them, I will fight them. One of the ways to do that is to use their bandwidth and storage to distribute my stream to as many people as I can, in a guerrilla sense, reach. And so distributing it around my stream keys is the way to do that. If anyone would like to contribute to that stream key process or project, which at one point earlier when I was talking about it, I was calling Arcane Storm. So if you want to contribute to Project or Operation Arcane Storm, then you would need to go into your YouTube account, click Go Live in the studio, so studio.youtube.com, click Go Live, and then copy the stream key from there and paste it to me. If you want me to have regular access, then you would need to create a permanent stream key. You also will probably need to click the Go Live button just before I start streaming every time for it to appear on your channel. Although I'm not sure how that works with the Go Live feature. I think you do need to do that. And if you don't remember one day, that's fine. But those that do will be able to freely host my content. You can have whatever benefits come to your channel as a result. They're all yours. But they will also be drawbacks. But the main reason you'd be doing it is in rejection of the valuation of your account on YouTube as a real thing, and instead using it for a purpose higher. The dissemination of free expression in favor of ideas that YouTube doesn't want to be heard. And you can still use YouTube to watch content without supporting their policies, because a lot of good people still use YouTube. In fact, most of them do. It might be worth having a separate channel that you subscribe to things on, or tracking your list of subscriptions on a different service. Yes, ours, it can be automated. And maybe I should set up something with the API that will automate it. I won't be able to easily grab the chat from everyone's streams, but maybe in time we can work out systems for that. Ours said, would you be interested in an open source syndication streaming system? Feels like a good idea. That could be great, yeah? We should definitely discuss that. I've had lots of ideas around that. Villa says I give my stream key. Sounds good. If anyone wants help on how to get me the stream key, I'm happy to do that. Maybe not immediately after the stream, but sometime soon. Daka says, be sure to pull a Keemstar and have a channel technically owned by someone else so you can't get got for ban evasion. That's the plan, yeah. Even the safe channel I create, possibly especially the safe channel I create, the idea should be that one never gets banned. But they will all be created initially by someone else. Although I'm not sure what I'll do in terms of convenience, in terms of logging into both on the same PC. I might want to try and avoid associating them even by that, and try to instead have different profiles logged into different ones at different times. Try to manage that differently. I've got enough different browsers and PCs, that's probably quite viable. Yeah, that's the plan currently. That's the reason I didn't set up anything new on YouTube straight away, because I wanted to take the time to actually think about the issue, and I think this is a good way forward. So essentially, the YouTube channel being deleted was bad news, but I think the good that can come of it, the good that will come despite that bad news, could be much better than having the YouTube channel in the first place even was, and could be much better than the downside of it being deleted. And then obviously the other projects we have going. If things go fairly well, if there's no big unexpected problems, then early 2022 would be pretty good for the Cabal. And also late 2021. We're not quite there yet. For the world, though, no, it's only going to get worse. This really is. It's a nice campfire at the end of the world, but maybe that's the best I can offer, and maybe that is enough. Either way. Yes, maybe I should, Achilles. This is not a well-oiled machine, this stream key process, but maybe I should make it one. Yes, I will look into that. All right, I think we'll end the stream there. Or very soon. Is there anything you can hear Boomer in the background. He can tell when the stream's coming to an end. Is there anything else you guys like to say before we wrap up?
Just basically wish everyone a happy Christmas. Hope everyone has a good time. Don't let the world as it is get you too down. You know, have a break at least this time of year. Don't let it get to you too much.
I did want to bring up a little bit about the RP rule set. I am relatively new to concepts like that, so I didn't see anything in there in the 63 pages that I read for how characters should operate with objects. So, for instance, if I bought a bunch of books with technical specs for weaponry, tanks, and things like that, I just want to see how do I properly set up to where it can be imported into this rule set and be interacted with characters.
Good question. I haven't written anything for that yet because it's narrative focused. So what would happen is the items that you have would narratively affect what you can do. If you have a sword, it doesn't give you a +1 to damage. You can cut people with the sword. You can slice them or stab them with the sword. It works narratively rather than mechanically, which I think works better for some viewers, but not others, obviously, which is fine. Which means that I don't think it's vital for me to mechanically integrate possessions, but I probably should do it anyway. For the launch version of the rule set, there probably won't be any sort of possessions or inventory system. It'll be done narratively. But the great thing about this rule set, if I may say so myself, especially as it relates to this, is you can extend the rule set as you like. So if I don't write the thing about or the basic infrastructure for items, someone else can. You could, if you like, Zane. You could write that yourself,
and then I'll have to do.
And then put the items themselves to fit into that system. And like Minecraft adopted some community ideas as official, dynamic lighting, for example, or smooth lighting, sorry. It might end up becoming official, and I would still, of course, give you credit for it, displayed prominently. I'm planning actually to have a section of the rule set document itself that links to all the known expansions. As long as you guys have a publicly available link for the document or wherever you are, or web page that you're hosting your rule set in, it can be linked to from my document. Best also to link back to the document itself. And at some point, I think I will write up that document as a website, not just page, because it would make more sense in HTML, much more flexibility there, and much easier to present it. But it's easier to write as a document, but easier to present as web page. And Zane, you can maybe cooperate with other people as well. Come up with have a small working group for creating the inventory system, or the item system.
Yeah, because even narrative-wise, like if, for instance, if you have two different tanks, one of them may not be able to penetrate the other one, so you would still need some sort of system to know how to properly deal with armor and stuff like that on vehicles.
Yes,
but I'll end up writing that.
Ultimately, if that stuff needs to be mathematically accountable, you would need a system for it, yes. However, as you mentioned tanks there, my base rule set is completely generalized. So if you wanted tanks, you should have a tanks extension or a World War II extension or something that specifies those things deliberately. That's how it's intended to be used. So yeah, I've just said to Scrum. Scrum was asking about joining Aiden's server. It's patron only, but she did say that Cabal can join, so maybe Scrum would be allowed to just join. So he's not listening to the stream, so I'm trying to relay that to him.
Are you sure you want him in, Aiden? Are you sure?
I don't see a problem with that.
Look, there's two reasons that I'm not concerned about that die. One is it's Scrump and Aiden is a genuine female.
You know
Two
what? True.
is Aiden's in Cabal anyway.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm not too bothered. I don't think I should send him the invite myself, but he probably would be fine to join. I mean, he's Scrump after all.
Indeed, he's Scrum.
He could just ping her. I'm sure that she would be happy to invite him.
Oh, yeah. I just DM her as well. Sure, I'm sure it'll figure itself out.
So, is there anything else? I think if there is anything else, we will deal with it after the show. So, as per usual, Cabal, I'm going to probably take a quick break to get a drink or something, and then I will hop back. But let us wrap up here. And in Cabal, let's hop down when you guys are all ready, when we finish the stream. Hop down to Pit Alpha, and we'll have a big old chin wag. And then soon, I think I will start talking a bit more about the RP rules set. There's a few things I want to figure out. And Di, at some point, I'd like to run through and see some of your opinions on it, because obviously as a player, it'll be important.
Yeah, all right, that's fine.
All right. Nothing specific planned, Lord of Yule, for post-stream, but I'm sure we'll come up with something. All right. Thanks for watching, everyone. And thank you for all the generous contributions. I will see you next time.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas.
Thanks for stopping by. Don't forget to give Subscribe Chan some attention while you're here. She does so like meeting new people. She also appreciates a well-dressed subscriber, and wouldn't you know it, I'm a humble shirt salesman. You can buy these and many more on my Spreadshirt store. So go ahead, make me a happy merchant. And extra special thanks to those supporting me financially. If you would like to support my content and receive the occasional perk in return, find the link to my Subscribe star in the description. My work here is done. See you next time.